520 years ago, the world plunged into chaos. The balance of power shifted, modern technology and civilization collapsed. All kinds of monsters have practically destroyed humanity. Fortunately, the energy was revived in the form of the life force of heaven and earth. Ancient cultivation and martial arts became humanity's hope for survival. There was one of the martial arts academies at the Starlight Base. The teacher said that martial arts start with the foundation, and with diligence and practice they can become masters. The master began to explain the 18 forms of body forging, starting with the first style. The boys were unhappy with why the master was teaching them the basics. Considering it a waste of time, many had learned this in early childhood. The disrespect from the children offended the teacher, and suddenly he noticed one of the guys. The boy diligently repeated all the forms shown by the teacher. It was Feng Yun, an orphan who had never practiced martial arts before. But why was he so serious? The master sighed. What a pity. Being serious was useless. The teacher said that whoever doesn't want to learn the 18 forms of body forging will do 180 push-ups, and the students apologized in unison. Behind everyone else, Feng Yun was training. The teacher, looking at him, thought, he has neither resources nor foundations. Feng will definitely not become a master even if he trains until his death. The teacher explained that in this style, it is very important to lower the center of gravity. The master gave the students some time to rest, then they were to study on their own. The boys went on break, and Yun continued his studies. He didn't have time to remember what the teacher showed, and in general, where his cheat was, which is given to those who found themselves in another world. From the 21st century Earth he came to this world. Feng was an adult, but became a 14-year-old boy. One day, when he was walking to work, the mirror pendant on his neck suddenly lit up, and he strangely passed through it. And although Feng was involved in martial arts in his world, here everything is different. The body forging technique here is just exercise with such training. Feng won't reach the peak of martial arts even in 800 years. The boys began to whisper, and Lin Chang from the advanced class entered the hall. He is the #1 genius of the Highlang Academy, and 2 days ago he passed the martial arts master certification. He is only 19 years old, but he comes from a wealthy family where children are bathed in healing baths and taught the basics. Feng heard that many people cannot reach this level even after 30 years. The young man did not take his eyes off the first genius of the academy. Suddenly the medallion lit up and Feng received a message. Its mirror space has been created and the infinite mirror function has been enabled. The guy looked around in confusion. He had moved somewhere again. The projection target of Lin Chang has also been selected. The system asked Feng if he was sure about his choice. The young man confirmed hesitantly. Suddenly something brightly lit up right in front of the guy. Confused, Feng Yun saw a large mirror in which a warrior was reflected. He reached for the mirror and wondered if this could be his cheat in this world. Suddenly a hand appeared from the mirror and someone told Feng not to touch it. A girl looked out from the mirror space and sternly told him not to touch the mirror with his dirty hands. The young man was stunned. In front of him was a young beauty. Feng was so embarrassed that he couldn't utter a word. The girl introduced herself. She is the embodiment of an endless projection mirror. Fen can call her Miss Mirror. The guy asked her to explain what was happening, and she replied that it was an endless projection of the mirror world created in his mind. He can see his characteristics here. Then he saw the characteristics of Lin Chang, the first projection object. The girl explained that these were the things that would drop if he defeated the projection. Here Feng was surprised. It looked very much like a game. The mirror suggested starting the first battle, and a warrior appeared from the mirror. But the guy still had a lot of questions, and he asked to wait. If this place is in his mind, then what happened to the body? The girl smiled. It will get better when he learns to control the body from here. The second question, if he loses, he will die, the interlocutor answered. Of course not. It's a battle in his mind. But the feeling of death is like the real thing, even more painful. The girl said that if he was so afraid, the difficulty could be reduced by changing the projection's cultivation level. Feng didn't want to experience death and decided to lower the enemy's cultivation. His father's face came into his head, saying it wouldn't work. If you choose the easy mode, you will miss out on a lot of fun and interesting things. Influenced by the memory, Feng said that the easy mode was too boring. Mirror exclaimed, casting aside his cowardice. The boy entered the thorny path. Realizing that he had been tricked, Feng attacked Mirror with his fists for projecting the memory. He demanded a change in the enemy's cultivation. Mirror said the enemy would still be stronger than him, but Feng didn't want to die even once. Seeing his opponent, the young man was shocked that he still had a sword. Mirror Lin shouted, "Sword strike, advanced stage." The fighter lunged and swung his sword. Shouting that this was cheating, Feng ran away. Mirror laughed. She forgot to warn. The battlefield in the mirror space can also be changed. She decided that it would be a forest. At that very moment, a stunned Feng found himself running through the forest. He was distracted and crashed into a thick tree. The knight with the sword was still pursuing the young man. With a shout of no, the boy ran at incredible speed. His eyes were full of tears, and his heart was beating somewhere in his heels with fear. Finally, he realized that if he ran, he would die. He needed to come up with a way to counterattack. Mirror giggled, finally calming down. It was better to hurt Feng now than to let him die in reality. Feng's instincts slowly began to activate. He figured that fighting his opponent for half an hour would not be a problem. There is no point in counting on the enemy being tired. We need to come up with something. Feng's attack power cannot destroy the enemy's armor. This means you need to aim at places without protection. Mirror Lin dodged Feng's attack. While both the Mirror Knight and Feng dodged each other's attacks, the young man saw that the enemy was trying to attack his body or head. Suddenly, Feng grabbed his opponent by the leg, throwing him to the ground. In his past life, he spent a lot of time fighting. The young man pressed his foot against the enemy, preventing him from getting up. Feng picked up a huge boulder and said that he won this round. Mirror was surprised. Unexpectedly, Feng won, and she was sure that he would definitely die. The player asked if he hadn't gotten anything. The girl reassured him that the first kill had a 100% chance. His reward is the kiss of the mirror. The young man asked where to leave a bad review. The girl laughed. She was joking. For his first battle, Feng received the first rank technique, forging the body of the snake-headed turtle. You just need to tell Feng to accept, and he will study it immediately. The young man said accept, and at that moment, unnoticed by him, his breathing changed. Feng's voice began to sound ancient, like that of a dozing turtle, or a snake that had been dormant in the depths of the silt for thousands of years. The guy took a deep breath. He felt that his strength and blood ki had increased. He got into a fighting stance, but Mirror chuckled. It only seemed that way to him. Feng just learned this technique. Without training, he won't be stronger. Now he must relax and defocus, so he will return to reality. When Feng Yun woke up, he saw his teacher looking upset. The young man fell to the floor in surprise, deciding that there was a ghost in front of him. The teacher asked if Feng was not going to have lunch and there would be a meeting afterward, so the young man could go home. Having thanked the teacher, the boy ran home. The master sighed. Feng had no need to work hard now. The front line was broken. He needed to conserve resources. There will be an extraordinary exam soon. If Yun does not pass it, he will be expelled. The guy was puzzled as to why there were so many people. Half an hour later, Feng Yun arrived at the Dawn Orphanage. It turns out that this is now his home. What could be better than a big family? Opening the door, the young man entered the shelter. A friend came to see him and asked why he came back so early, whether he had done something wrong and was sent home. He was surprised when this happened. It was just that the teachers were having a meeting. That's why they let him go early. And why did Xiaolan come back early? It turned out that her class teacher's son died on the front lines, so classes were cancelled. Mirror smiled. Feng's childhood sweetheart was not bad looking. The young man asked Xiaolan if there was anything edible, as he hadn't even had lunch. The girl had just prepared some braised pork to celebrate Feng's first day at the academy. The braised pork was similar to a similar dish from Feng Yun's world. The young man ate the meat with appetite, saying that it was delicious. The girl was happy. She changed the seasoning and it turned out well. Mirror was very angry. She also wanted to try the meat. The living embodiment of the mirror space really wanted to get out into the real world. Feng found himself in the mirror space again. He continued training with Lin Chang's projection. Mirror asked if he hadn't eaten enough stewed pork. The young man frowned, asking how she knew. The battles went one after another. After losing several times, the guy began to defeat the enemy. In the 52nd battle, he was able to break Lin's neck. Feng had 24 victories and 57 deaths to his credit. It turned out that the girl had quietly increased the projection power, and Feng was burning with anger. She asked who was to blame for him being so weak. Feng called her a fool, saying that he wanted to knock out the pills first. Mirror was surprised. He had already knocked out the pills. First-class blood chi medicine, 10 pills should be enough to reach the level of a pre-master of the initial rank. Blood chi contains the original ki, and is the initial and most commonly used pill for cultivation. You need to find a deserted place where no one will disturb you, and after taking the pill, cultivate the tempering of the turtle and snake. Feng also got some clothes, but they were too big, so the young man decided to sell them. Xiaolan quietly walked to Yun's door. She was very worried. Feng hadn't had dinner or breakfast. She had heard that one shouldn't disturb during cultivation. But what could she do? Suddenly the door opened and a pale young man came out. He thought that in the future he would need to set aside time every day for cultivation. It seems Mirror can see the world through his eyes. But you have to close your eyes in the bath. He shouted at Mirror to give him some personal space. Xiaolan apologized pitifully. The young man turned around in surprise. He had not noticed her. There were tears in the girl's eyes. She didn't want to disturb him. She was just worried. Feng smiled. He didn't say this to her, he said this to himself. She reminded him that it was time for class. Since he hadn't had time to eat breakfast, she packed some food for him to take with him. The young man thanked him. It seemed he and the owner of this body were close. The guy found an abandoned park in the outer city, the perfect spot. It's a pity that classes are in the morning, so I have to cultivate them in the evening. He took out a bottle of cultivation pills. Having swallowed one, he thought with horror that it cost as much as 3,000 yuan. Having settled himself comfortably, he began to master the technique of tempering the turtle and snake, building the basics. Like a dozing turtle and a sleeping snake, Feng absorbed the original qi and tempered his body. After 9 days, the guy felt noticeable changes. He gained strength. He finally took the first step in cultivation, becoming a primary rank pre-master. There was one last pill left. He swallowed 27,000 yuan. Feng decided to try to squeeze something valuable out of Lin Qiang. Having reached the house, he moved into the mirror space and entered the battle. Mirror raised the projection level again. Feng felt that the enemy was clearly not of the initial rank. She was casting a spell with difficulty again, but it didn't matter anymore. With his current speed and strength, the young man confidently won. Now Lin Qiang is no longer his opponent. Feng Yun defeated the projection again. As a reward, he received the first level technique, chopping sword. The guy smiled and agreed to accept. Now Feng could concentrate his power on the sword and deliver a furious blow. He was like in a dream, as if he had been training year after year. I practiced the technique of precise and furious sword strikes, and all this experience poured into his body and mind. The young man realized that this was many years of experience in training the cutting sword. He picked up the sticks and decided to try the skill. Concentrating his strength, he struck, and the system congratulated him on his success. True, the sticks in his hands broke. It's a pity that he doesn't have a sword. But now Feng is probably much stronger than Lin Qiang. After all, at the time of the projection, Lin was just beginning to study martial arts, and Feng instantly received all his experience in practicing the cutting sword. The young man remembered that there were real swords at the academy. He would have to test them tomorrow. Feng Yun decided to go into the weapons shop and look at the swords. He walked up to a display case with various swords. The cheapest black iron sword cost almost 3,000. The guy was outraged. This is robbery in broad daylight, and why would he spend money on things that he can get through grinding? But it wouldn't hurt to earn some extra money. He went to Highland Martial Arts Academy. He was eager to try out his new weapon skill. Feng entered the newbie equipment room. Everything he needed was there. On a special stand, Feng saw different swords. The young man took the simplest sword. This is also an iron sword, but it hasn't been properly looked after and is in poor condition. But this sword should be enough to try out the cutting sword technique. The guy chose a dummy as the target for the blow. To Feng's surprise, the large training doll shattered into pieces. The resulting technique is truly very powerful. And suddenly the young man saw that the sword in his hands had fallen apart. Throwing the fragment, he shouted what a load of crap this was. The teacher entered the newcomer's weapons room. A wooden mannequin, chopped into small pieces, lay on the floor. Taking the stump, the teacher immediately understood that this was a first-rank martial art, a cutting sword technique. On the table lay a fragment of a training sword, a note, and a bottle. Someone reported that this was payment for a damaged sword. A pill of qi and blood fell onto the teacher's palm. He looked at the fragment thoughtfully. Such destructive power. Could it really have been done by Lin Qiang? Feng left the academy in tears. He left the last pill. He wished he could go back and get more of them. But he can't continue to shake things out of Lin Qiang. He later decided to project all the students, and then the teachers. After leaving the academy, Feng went to pick up Xiaolan from work. The girl got a job as a cashier to earn money for the orphanage, and so that Feng could study at the academy in peace. She asked Feng why he was so late today. He replied that something had happened. Suddenly, a terrible dark tornado began to swirl over the city. The girl was stunned with fear. With a terrifying scream, a monster appeared in the sky. Because of this scream, numerous windows in houses cracked. Glass shards flew at passers-by and everyone started running. One of the fragments flew straight towards Xiaolan. Feng Yun calmly caught the glass shard with 2 fingers. There was no fear on his face. He wanted to protect the girl. He threw the caught piece of glass into the trash can. The glass landed right on a pile of trash. The guy asked the frightened Xiaolan if she was okay. The girl was surprised. Fina always gave the impression of being a weak guy, but now he seemed different. Yun looked at the monster with interest. Everyone around whispered in horror that it was a monster. Ever since Feng came to this world, he had often heard about monsters, but this was the first time he had seen a monster in real life. The young man cursed. If the monster entered the main area, the lives of many people would be in danger. Suddenly, a fashionable arrow flashed in the sky while the townspeople fled. The golden arrow flew straight towards the huge monster. The monster screamed in pain as the arrow pierced his chest. A giant bloodied eagle fell to the ground right in front of Feng. It was a third-rank monster, a black golden eagle, but it was killed with one arrow. This is definitely the work of a martial arts master. The system asked if Feng wanted to project a black golden eagle. The young man was delighted. He can even project a monster. As soon as he agreed, the golden eagle was reflected in the mirror. The projection worked. I wonder what will fall out of it. Feng Yun and Xiaolan returned home. After dinner, Feng decided to go to the mirror space. He looked at the characteristics of the golden eagle. There were far fewer items than Lin Chang had, but they were all high quality. Feng was eager to fight the monster, so he asked Mirror to give the projection a power that was less powerful than the real one. The young man found himself in the desert, and a huge golden eagle was rushing towards him. It turns out that Feng can also model weapons in the mirror space. The monster approached Feng. The guy just wanted to practice with the sword. He concentrated his power into the sword and struck. The monster screamed in pain, and the monster's blood gushed out. Feng's opponent was left without powerful wings and clawed paws. The girl congratulated Feng on his victory as a reward. He received the flesh and blood of a black golden eagle. The guy decided to have another fight with the winged monster. After the fight with the golden eagle, Feng fought Chiang 5 more times, but still got nothing. Training for today is over, and the young man is back home. He summoned the reward of the flesh and blood of the black golden eagle. Bottles and boxes appeared in front of Feng. Having opened one of the bottles, the young man looked inside. There was a scarlet substance flowing there. He realized it was blood. So the projection mirror separated the monster's blood and flesh. First, he decided to see how the monster's blood would work. Feng felt a terrible pain, as if his body was about to explode. He must process all this energy as quickly as possible. It turned out that a drop of black eagle blood is equal to approximately 5 pills of qi in blood. With such a source, Feng can quickly reach the level of a high-ranking reserve martial artist. The corpse of such a monster is worth more than 1,000,000 yuan. Only great families can enjoy such benefits. Feeling the progress, Feng continued to cultivate. His body has already noticeably strengthened, and his skills have increased. Training became a permanent part of his life. He visited the mirror space and the abandoned park every day. A little more and he will break through to the level of a mid-rank martial artist. After finishing his training, he thought it was time for him to return. He was already very close to the orphanage. Suddenly, Feng saw one of the orphanage graduates standing next to the entrance. The boy turned around and greeted Feng Yun happily. The young man asked Shu if he would come over for a visit. The guy refused, since he joined the Floating Cloud Society. The director is not happy to see him. Feng was surprised, then why did Shu come? The boy became a junior leader and now doesn't have time to look after the shelter. Zhu wanted to teach Feng a couple of techniques and entrust him with looking after the orphanage. The young man thought that this guy was still as caring and correct as ever. But now he is already weaker than Feng. Mirror didn't even want to project it, and the young man continued training with the Black Eagle and Lin Chang. Mirror Girl asked if Feng was bored with these projections yet. It was lunchtime at the shelter. Xiaolan noticed that something was wrong with Feng Yun. Usually he devoured his food with gusto, but today he seemed a bit worried. The director reprimanded Feng to concentrate and not drop his food. The young man immediately apologized. Mirror congratulated Feng. He received Lin Chang's most valuable thing. This is a low-ranking gold attribute talent. Only 1 in 100 martial artists is born with the attribute. There are 10 types of attributes. These are gold, wood, water, fire, earth, wind, thunder, ice, light, and darkness. Each of them gives a person different opportunities. The young man asked to give him the attribute quickly. He immediately began the process of absorbing the attribute. The girl asked if Feng felt any changes. He felt an incomprehensible connection with the outside world, but a very vague one. And his Kui energy in his blood became much more powerful, that's all. Mirror laughed. Attributes are not revealed unless you practice martial arts. The Black Golden Eagle, for example, has a talent for wind. A few days later, Feng became a mid-ranking martial artist. Now normal sharp weapons cannot hurt him. He became stronger and his skin became whiter and softer. In his past life, Feng was very envious of such people. It was already late, and the young man hurried back to the shelter. Suddenly he saw a crowd of hooligans chasing the guy. It's best to ignore this, as it often happens away from the center. Suddenly the moon appeared from behind the clouds, and it became light in the park. The guy turned around, cursing. His pursuers with blades demanded that he stop. The young man recognized him. It was Feng Yushu. The guy ran quickly, but his pursuers were already catching up with him. Feng hid behind a tree. Shu had 30 meters left to run. 20 meters left. 10 meters. The young man prepared to rush forward. He waited for Shu to run past him. At that very moment, Feng rushed towards Shu's pursuers. He couldn't let them kill his fellow orphanage resident. The muscular bandits were flying towards the skinny boy. The big man grinned, holding a blade in each hand. Swinging at Feng, the thug shouted for the guy to die. Feng grabbed the big guy by the arm. His grip was so strong that the big guy screamed in pain. The young man struck his opponent with a powerful blow to the chest. The brute's companions continued to run towards Feng, and the big guy, dropping his blade, flew back from the blow. Feng picked up the long knife the bandit had lost. To deal with his pursuers, the young man decided to use the cutting sword technique. He chose his target, concentrated his force, and struck. The stunned bandits screamed as they felt blows to their necks. Zhu watched the fight in confusion, wondering who this boy was. The young man turned around and Zhu recognized Feng Yun. The guy exclaimed, "He's probably sleeping. Where did the boy come from here?" Feng suggested thinking of it as a dream. The main thing is not to report it to the shelter. As he left, the young man once again asked Zhu not to tell anyone about him. The next day, Feng went to the martial arts academy again. The young man was wearing a student's uniform. Approaching the building, he was surprised to see military vehicles. It seemed strange to him why soldiers had come to the academy. A lot of students gathered in the junior practice hall. It turned out that the military was conducting an inspection. The top students would be transferred to advanced classes, while the rest would be expelled. The guys were worried. They had just been admitted. Were they really going to get rid of them due to a lack of resources? The head of the academy and a military man came out to the boys. The large man loudly demanded that the students be silent. Everyone froze and looked at the formidable guest with curiosity. The man took a few steps towards the boys. Clenching his fists, he looked intently at the silent students. Feng realized that this was the expert who would check them. The young man asked Mirror if she had seen him. He was a real soldier of iron and blood. He was worth projecting. At that very second, an impressive figure appeared in the mirror. This was Zhou Kunlong, a true mid-rank martial artist with a wealth of techniques. Feng exclaimed that he wanted to challenge him right now. The young man immediately rushed into battle with a new, powerful projection. But Zhou immediately blocked the attack, grabbing the guy by the leg. The soldier threw the enemy aside like a rag doll. Feng asked for a mirror. She again messed something up with the level. Why is Zhou so strong? The soldier rushed to attack Feng Yun. Using his fist technique that transcends boundaries, he dealt the young man numerous painful blows. Mirror said that simply lowering the level will not make a fighter who has been through many battles weak. Feng felt like Zhou had knocked out his tooth. The girl suggested lowering the projection to the level of an ordinary person. Zhou Kunlong said that they had selected 100 monsters, and the students would have to defeat one of them alone or in a team. The guys will be evaluated based on the results of the fight. The top 100 will be promoted to the senior course, and the top 3 will receive key and blood pills. The boys began to make noise joyfully. Zhou looked at the children thoughtfully. Suddenly he frowned, his gaze landing on Feng Yun. What's wrong with this kid? Was he really that scared just by hearing about the test? Feng was in the mirror space. He modeled the sword. The young man was confident that he could definitely cope with an ordinary person. But he himself will not be satisfied with such a victory. Yun wounded his opponent with his sword. A sword also flashed in Zhou's hand, and their blades crossed with a ringing sound. Zhou used a palm skill of inhuman strength. Bai invited those who trusted him to join him. Many wanted to join Bai and looked at Feng with disdain. Bai asked Feng Yun if he hadn't recovered yet, but the young man was still in the mirror space. He finally managed to defeat Zhou Kulun's projection. Mirror congratulated the young man on his victory for his first kill of a projection. He could receive practical combat experience as a reward. Feng happily agreed to accept him. Bai contemptuously told his classmate to wake up like a coward. Yun opened his eyes, and Bai was surprised to see the youth's energy blaze. Their eyes met, and Bai couldn't resist. Falling to the floor, the group's leader called Feng a monster. Military trucks drove into the courtyard of the martial arts academy one after another. The huge trucks contained cages with captured monsters. Having gained combat experience, Feng identified the monster as a shadow cat, very fast, with a weak spot at the back of its neck. The young man felt terribly tired. He had not slept all night, and now his eyes were like a panda's. As the students entered the arena to fight the monsters, Feng knew he would have to try to blend in. Many students have strength and good skills, but without combat experience, they are unlikely to be able to stand up to the monsters. Even Bayu is scared now. The juniors entered the underground arena in anticipation of the test. Zhu said disdainfully, "The students of this generation are weak and have no combat experience." The master replied that they had only joined a month ago, and they had to fight monsters in their situation. It was normal to be afraid. Zhou's gaze fell on Feng Yun again. The soldier noticed that the guy was constantly looking around and had panda eyes. What a disgrace. Kunlun told the director to get ready to begin the exam. The director reminded them that if they felt they could not continue, they should not take risks. They can always turn to the instructor for help, but as soon as they ask for help, they will be considered disqualified. The boys entered a large corridor with numbered doors. Feng didn't know that there was such a place under the school. Judging by the ticket he received, he needs to go to room number 24. The young man found the right doors. They were open and Feng Yun walked inside. The guy found himself in a small round room with a barred exit for the monster. The instructor asked why the young man was alone. "This is a difficult test. It is normal to form teams." Feng smiled. He was too weak, so no one wanted to team up with him. The guy told Feng to take suitable equipment, or rather, to give up right away and not waste time. The student had fairly high-quality equipment in front of him. The young man chose light armor. He decided to pretend that he accidentally hit the monster's weak spot. The instructor announced that they were about to begin the exam. Judging by the roar, there is an iron-haired boar behind the bars. Its weak spot is the throat. The instructor warned that this monster is the strongest among the 100 first-rank monsters. Feng was wondering how best to stage his performance. The boar growled threateningly. Giant snakes emerged from his tail. It turned out that the monster mutated while in the cage. Suddenly, the student found himself facing a more powerful enemy. Feng said he mutated into a second-rank snake-tailed iron-haired boar monster. The young man realized that the teacher was more afraid of the monster than Feng. The boar began to attack, and Feng realized that he would not be able to hide his strength. There was no time to wait for help to arrive. Fortunately, Joe had encountered such a situation. The grown snakeheads become the boar's new weak spot. It's even easier to deal with them than before his mutation. The stunned instructor saw that the boar was dead. The young man stood a little to the side, safe and sound. The teacher couldn't believe that this boy had really won. Feng smiled. People are capable of many things when they are driven into a corner. Yun didn't know if the examiners would believe such a thing. There is nothing to be done now. All that remains is to trust in fate. The instructor didn't know how to evaluate Feng. He single-handedly defeated a second-rank monster. And then the teacher noticed that the boy had taken the equipment and weapons he had been given with him. Seeing that Feng came out without wounds, Bai thought that he had fled without a fight. Soon it will be Bai's team's turn. He won't be afraid of any monsters. Bai was confident that only Yang Tian and Mao Yunshui could compete with him for first place. Feng decided to go off to some corner and take a nap. Stretching out on the bench, the young man closed his eyes. Students were walking around, discussing the unexpected exam. While he still had free time, Feng wanted to fight Zhou and the Black Golden Eagle. Mirror noticed that the guy had become a little arrogant after defeating a second-rank monster. After lunch, the corridor was full of students injured during the exam. Bai informed everyone that the test results had already been posted. On a large stand hung lists of the results of each. The guys crowded around the stand. Seeing the results, Bai Yuntian gritted his teeth. Excellent student Mao Yunshui asked how this was possible. Another top student asked in confusion who this guy Feng Yun was. Zhou looked at the results. This Feng Yun defeated a second-rank monster. He is an orphan without origin. This boy probably has secrets. We need to recruit him into the army. But the director objected, saying that this was his favorite student. Feng fought several times, obtained the inch-walking technique and the black and gold golden eagle feathers, and was in a hurry to see the results. Hearing the hubbub, the young man was confused about what was going on. The straight A students were outraged. It was obvious he was cheating. The boys decided that they needed to talk to the principal. Feng didn't understand who was cheating. His gaze fell on the stand with the exam results. And then he realized that everyone was accusing him of cheating. 3 of the best students entered the office of the academy director. The old respected master asked what had happened to the guys. Bai said, the highest grade in the test was S. Why was only Feng Yun given the rank SSS? It's unfair. The director understood their confusion, so he decided to show them something. He touched the circle on his desk. The boys saw a recording of a fight with a snake-tailed boar. The recording showed the monster attacking Feng Yun. The students were puzzled as to what kind of monster it was. Was there really such a thing among the first-ranked ones? The director replied that it was an iron-haired boar that had mutated to the second rank before the battle, and Feng killed it in just 5 minutes. The boys apologized unanimously for disturbing the director. There was a black market in the outer city at Starlight Base. Feng Yun, disguised as best he could, went there. He had no intention of skipping classes and going to the black market to sell his things. It's just that everyone at school looks at him so strangely that he can keep a low profile. The young man entered the store, hoping that there were honest people there. The girl asked the visitor if she could help him with anything. Feng said he wanted to sell some monster materials. He laid out black and gold golden eagle feathers on the counter. The seller immediately identified the feathers as those of a third-ranked black golden eagle. It is a good material for feather arrows, and is better suited than regular metal. 1 feather costs 10,000 wen. There are 40 of them here, and all are in good condition. A total of 400,000 wen, Feng agreed. The girl asked for identification. Yun handed over the card. The seller placed the card in a glowing circle. The required amount was transferred to the guy's card. Returning the card, the girl thanked him for using their services. Feng Yun checked the balance. The money was in the account. It was so nice to have money. He had never had so much money on his card in his life. He wanted to anonymously donate 200,000 yuan to the orphanage to make the children's lives better. The next day he still went to the academy. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been able to explain himself to the orphanage director in Xiaolan. Suddenly a teacher approached Feng and called out to him. The young man claimed to be ill and asked for leave. But the teacher did not believe him and took him to the director of the academy. Feng wanted to escape outside the city and live by hunting monsters. The teacher told the principal that he brought Feng Yun. The old master asked the young man what level he was at now. He honestly admitted that he was an ordinary mid-ranking martial artist. The teacher was stunned at how he trained like that. The director said that they value every outstanding student and have no right to interfere in a student's personal life. The master offered the young man some tea. Feng thought with horror, because this tea is not poisonous. The principal advised the boy to remain as quiet as possible when he was outside of school. This warning surprised the guy. He was afraid of the academy. In front of Feng stood a box with a prize for first place. The director gave him a week's leave. Then he would move on to the senior course. Feng Yun devoted his entire week-long vacation to training. His body changed beyond recognition. Here they are, the muscles of an ordinary top-ranking martial artist. For 3 months, he spent most of his time grinding within the system, and finally reached the level of a regular top-rank master. He suddenly noticed that the original gold attribute key was strengthening his body. But shouldn't this only be seen at the level of a true master? It turns out that the attributes are already beginning to manifest at his level. Feng needs to get more attribute talents. If he obtains all 10 attributes, he will probably become the only genius in the world. The young man went to the wall of the Starlight base. He received a combat sword made of alloy and the same armor. It's time to hunt monsters outside the base. When the guards saw Feng, they asked whose child it was. He was about 14 years old, and he was going out into the wasteland alone. I feel sorry for the man who will be sent to collect his body. The young man walked along the streets where life had once been in full swing. He went into the night snowy forest. This place is very popular among hunters. Feng didn't need maps, because he had Zhou's experience, who had been here countless times. As soon as the young man entered the forest, a monster attacked him. He cut off the head of the azure flower snake, a first-rank monster. These snakes are very poisonous, but they do not contain anything valuable. There is no point in projecting it anymore either. Having climbed the mighty trees, the young man jumped from branch to branch. He found a huge dead rhinoceros in the forest. Using a sword, the young man cut fresh, juicy meat from the beast. The young hunter moved on. Suddenly he heard that someone started hunting him. An arrow flew after the young man. He was surprised. This attack predicted his next move. He would not be able to dodge. To defend himself, Feng used a second-tier body tempering technique. The hardness of the golden dome prevented the arrow from killing the young man. The hunter was amazed. This was the perfectly mastered hardness of the golden dome. The bandit noticed too late that his target was already attacking him. The man only had time to gasp before Feng dealt him a fatal blow. Zhou's experience taught him that in the forest, in addition to monsters, one must be wary of hunters. This hunter turned out to be a beggar. He had nothing but chi pills and blood. The guy left his body by the tree and rushed on. 2 more hunters, hiding in the thicket, saw the body of their fellow hunter. They couldn't believe that it was a teenager with such skills. The murdered man's name was Liu Guan. He was a skilled archer. He killed many hunters, but he couldn't cope with the boy. And who could have managed it? The kid has such techniques. The bandits decided to avoid this boy. The surprised guards saw that the boy was returning. Feng Yun had a huge, full backpack on his back. He returned from the wasteland alive and not empty-handed. The young man went to the outer city's black market again. His backpack was too small to carry all the loot. They had to take only the most valuable materials. Feng lost so much because of this. The seller thanked the hunter, and he sold the catch for 300,000 yuan. But there is no need to be greedy, after all. Feng earned this amount in half a day. He should be happy. Entering his orphanage, the young man loudly announced that he had returned. Suddenly he smelled meat coming from the kitchen. A very pleased Xiaolan ran out into the corridor. She took his hand and led him away. Feng was confused about what had happened. The girl said that someone anonymously donated 200,000 yuan to the orphanage, and the director decided to treat them all to a delicious meal. Happy children sat at a luxurious table in their difficult times. A good dinner was like a holiday. Feng thought he needed to work harder. He must enter Starlight Academy and buy a house in the city center for the director and the children. Then they will be safe. 2 days later, the young man went to the academy again. Today he is transferring to a senior class. Now he doesn't have to try to be invisible. The teacher said that if a student doesn't become a real martial arts master by the age of 30, he can get out of here. Don't relax thinking that you have another 15 years. Feng raised his hand and said he wanted to take a vacation. The guys started whispering, "This is the same guy who got an SSS rank on the exam." The master asked how many days the young man needed. Feng asked for a month or two. The teacher frowned. If the guy had some important business, he should explain. Yun shrugged, feeling uncomfortable talking about it. But this is too long. At least he should explain the reason to him, his class teacher. Feng suggested settling the matter with sparring. If the teacher wins, he won't leave. Otherwise, he'll get a vacation. The master was stunned. Did this boy really want to fight with him? Mirror chuckled, calling Feng a villain. The young man threw up his hands. But what should he do? There was nothing for him to learn at the academy. He would just be wasting his time there. The teacher and student prepared for the duel. The master was sure that it was worth beating Feng a little for his own good. The young man rushed forward, taking advantage of the inch-by-inch walk. The teacher prepared to repel the boy's attack. Feng didn't have a sword, so he decided to use his finger instead. The master was surprised that the boy attacked so quickly. A talented boy, but a teacher too. He did not spend his years doing nothing. The master's hand glowed with purple energy as he struck back. But the young man in front of him was no longer there. The teacher punched the air. He realized that Feng had mastered the inchwalk to perfection. But how was that possible? But it's useless. The boy won't be able to withstand his attack. The teacher lunged forward and delivered an attacking blow to Feng. The master cursed. He had put too much force into the blow. But the young man defended himself with the help of a golden bell. Feng Yun immediately launched a counterattack. He struck his class teacher several times at once. The boy was radiating such energy that everyone was stunned. In the blink of an eye, he was next to the enemy. The master's eyes reflected the student's fist aimed at him. The young man used the limit-breaking fist technique. Unable to bear it, the teacher screamed in horror. The attack of this orphan boy was too fierce. Feng told the teacher that he allowed him to win. The teacher was shaking with anger. This boy had really defeated him. Feng asked the master to keep his word and allow him to take his leave. The teacher was confused. A 15-year-old student shouldn't have such an understanding of combat. After saying goodbye to the teacher, Feng ran out of the hall. The cadets' opinions about Feng were divided. Some thought he was cool. Others thought he was arrogant. The young man did not dare to return to the shelter. He decided to go into the forest to hunt. In order not to waste time, the guy decided to take the bus. He went into the mirror space again. The young man also fought with the projection of Zhou Kunlong. He also challenged the projection of a giant black golden eagle. Miro said that Feng was lucky. He received the wind attribute talent. Green is the natural color of key energy with the attribute of wind. With the gold attribute, Feng can become stronger even without cultivation. The young man firmly decided that he must obtain all the attributes. Then he would be able to kill high-ranking monsters. Mirror was saddened. This idiot will die before he even has time to approach the monster with attribute talents. The teacher told the director of the academy what happened. He was at a loss whether to give Feng Yun a leave or not. The director smiled. No need to be so nervous. He invited the teacher to sit down and drink tea. There have been many teachers in their school's history who have been defeated by their students. He should be happy. The teacher exclaimed, "It was humiliating. Yun's skin is golden in color. This is a second-tier body tempering technique, and it is not the initial stage." The teacher didn't calm down. "This is impossible. The boy is hiding something." The principal continued. It was good to have such a student in his class. Once Feng Yun became famous, the teacher would become famous too. The teacher was confused, but he had never taught him before. If someone found out that he was Feng Yun's teacher, they would be interested not only in the boy, but also in him. No one will care who taught him before. But the class teacher, gritting his teeth, said, "He is not a child." The director noticed that he had such a talented student. He should be happy. Since the teacher has nothing to teach him, he must be allowed to study at home. But they must not let Feng understand that the school will be of little help to him. They must send the young man a gift. The director said sternly, "Enough talking." The director's heart was already starting to ache a little more, and he would change his mind. The teacher swore that he would deliver this gift to Feng Yun. 50 years have passed. Is there really any hope of seeing their school raising geniuses? Then the director will be able to die without regrets in his heart. In 2 months there will be an exam for 4 schools. Feng Yun should shine and help the director breathe a sigh of relief. This time the young man went hunting outside the snowy forest. He was delighted to see the 3rd-rank fire ant monsters. He jumped to the ground. These guys are very weak. Their shells and fire poison are very valuable, and will bring a lot of money. Mirror shouted, "There are too many of them. We can't attack." Feng reassured the little mirror that she need not worry. He would be careful with the fire poison. But she wasn't worried about the fire poison and suggested that Feng look around. Fire ants were moving towards the young man from all sides. There were more and more of them with every second. The air around them buzzed. They flocked to him like a swarm of bees. He cut down those who approached him. Feng understood what Mirror was talking about. There really were too many of them. Why didn't anyone tell me that these ants can camouflage themselves by changing their color? But now there's nothing that can be done. A countless army of fire ants surrounded the young man. He couldn't defeat them, so he ran away. On the way, he encountered a rather large and valuable monster. The young man recognized him. Having cut off the monster's head, he left the body to hold off the ants. Finally, Feng Yun was able to return to the orphanage. To avoid attracting attention, he quietly climbed through the window. If it weren't for the monsters that held back the ants, Feng would have died in the forest. The materials he obtained were sold for only 20,000. If he wants to buy a house in the city center, he needs hundreds of millions. Suddenly the door to Yun's room opened, and the class teacher grabbed him by the jacket. The teacher's eyes still burned with anger at the humiliation. Suddenly the teacher received a hefty slap from the director of the orphanage, and she sternly asked Feng what he had done at school. Realizing that she had hit the wrong person, she apologized, and the teacher, rubbing the bruised area, said that everything was fine. Feng was studying well. He is his best student, so they decided to let him study on his own for 2 months. The school wants to give Feng something. They hope it will help him become stronger. The young man was stunned when he saw the gift. These rare pills are worth at least several million. The shelter director felt sick when she heard the cost of the gift. Yun can be very naughty, but the teacher replied that it was a great honor for him to be his class teacher and hurried away. These pills were probably sent by the director. Now Feng is in his debt, but he needs to check if they are genuine. Mirror laughed. How suspicious, these are real key pills. They are filled with a huge amount of ki. The young man must first prepare to absorb their energy. Feng put a sign on the door so that he wouldn't be distracted. He was cultivating. Having settled comfortably, the guy swallowed the pill. It seems like nothing terrible happened. He felt his body filling with energy. Suddenly Feng felt an explosion of energy. His body tensed to the limit. It hurts so much. All his cells feel like they're heating up. He'll soon just fry. Mirror shouted, "We must quickly use the turtle snake body tempering technique to absorb the pill's energy." Feng cursed. He had never heard of objects that could kill a person like that. At first, he must be as strong and quiet as a turtle. Then Feng began to practice the snake's movements. The young man became like a dangerous snake bite. After repeating the complex once, Feng felt the pain subside. 10 repetitions filled the body with strength. After 50 repetitions, the body began to glow. 100 repetitions stabilized the condition. No one in the orphanage dared to disturb the young man during his cultivation. After 500 repetitions, Feng felt that his body had become like steel. He increased his speed and defense, and the blood forging remained. He never thought the pill would have such an effect. Most people get stuck at this stage. You need to not only maintain the blood qi, but constantly think about the quality of qi. He should get a tribute talent as soon as possible. And then Feng remembered that he needed to eat. Xiaolan was taken aback because of Feng's cultivation. He eats so much. Fortunately, they have money now. He mentally reassured the girl that he would soon become stronger, and then their home would become even better. Then they won't have to worry about all the little things. A week later, Feng was wandering through the snowy forest. How hard it was to find a monster with attribute talent. He saw an announcement that further on there was the inner part of the forest, and rescuers would not be able to get there. This means that good items will continue to drop. The young man stopped near a large forest lake. Standing at a safe distance from the water, he picked up a stone. If it gets closer, it can provoke a monster of the 4th rank or higher. Feng threw a stone into the quiet water of the lake. Soon he saw someone rising from the bottom. Huge predatory eyes appeared in the dark depths. A huge, toothy monster emerged from the depths. The young man prepared to fight the huge fish. The boy recognized this water monster. Suddenly, someone struck the giant monster. The head of the monstrous fish was cut off in the blink of an eye. A stunned Feng saw the monster's head fall onto the shore next to him. Mirror said. In front of him was a 3rd-rank monster, a blue-scaled fish. Someone behind Feng laughed, saying that he was lucky. The dinner would be luxurious. Knight Zhongyun Miao emerged from the forest, armed with a sword. Mirror liked him and immediately projected him. Zhong advised the child not to wander through the snowy forest alone. It was very dangerous. And don't follow him. He won't share his fish meat. Feng smiled contentedly. He had already copied all his items into the mirror. Why did he need meat? This master has quite a lot of things, so there is no need to go into the forest for now. The copied blue-scaled fish turned out to have the attribute talent of water. Feng decided to start knocking everything out as soon as he got home. First he fought with a blue-scaled fish. They then crossed blades with Zhongyun Miao. With the new projections, Feng could gain 2 new attributes. The young man was happy. He received the attribute talent of water and the technique of the Star Sword. Master Zhong's technique was simply superb. Feng had several useful battles with his projection. Finally, the treasured equipment lit up in his hands. The guy immediately decided to try out the Star Sword technique. This technique turned out to be much more powerful than his previous one. Feng was still angry at Mirror for not telling him right away that the mirror space could create weapons. Now you can check the effect of the water attribute talent. Different from the sharpness of gold and the ferocity of wind, water chi is like a gentle touch that heals wounds. Now Feng won't have to worry about his wounds. He has 3 talent attributes, and his body is tempered by 3 types of qi. Feng Yun decided not to miss the chance and cultivate even more. When he left the shelter, he saw a crowd of hooligans near the house. The broad-shouldered boys were clearly heading to an orphanage. Their leader asked Feng what the freak was looking at. The young man's eyes sparkled, and he was enveloped in luminous energy. The hooligans were scared because with this guy's eyes, it looked like he had killed a lot of people. The bandit shuddered. This boy was more terrible than any ferocious beast. The thugs fell to their knees. They didn't want to fight, afraid that the guy would kill them. Feng approached their leader, such a weakling, but still trying to act like a bandit. The young man said that he would ask questions, and the boys would answer. Otherwise, there won't be a trace left of them. The thugs nodded their heads obediently in agreement. Feng asked where they came from and why they came here. They are the Black Axe group. They came here to find Fengyu Shu. Shu's group was destroyed. Only he was able to escape. Their boss suspects that he took the property of that group. The young man hit the bandit on the neck. Feng said he didn't care about their affairs, but if they get this house involved in something, he will have to visit their nest. The bandit laughed. If the boy immediately apologized to their boss, maybe he would pardon him. In response, the young man slammed the bandit's face into the pavement. And then he saw Shu running towards him. He wanted to warn the residents of the shelter. Feng only defeated the 6s. The leader of the Black Axes is strong, so we need to gather all the children and leave. The young man replied, "It's too late. They are already here." A large black arrow flew towards Shu. Feng Yun caught her in midair and saved his fellow shelter resident. The large man laughed loudly. He told Shu that he was a great runner. The guy was in a panic. He didn't know where to go. The big guy said that if they hadn't known Shu's origins, they would never have found him here. Shu warned Feng to be wary of this man. It was Du Xiao, the right hand of the Black Axe leader. Du Xiao chuckled. He and his brothers came for Shu. It's time to sleep. So this is his orphanage. What a pity that it is closing today. Yu shouted at Du not to dare touch them. The bandit laughed in response. The orphanage director shouted at Feng and Shu to go home quickly. Du Xiao ordered everyone to be killed. Zhu closed his eyes and groaned. He was the one who dragged them all into this. Suddenly the guy heard a scream, and when he opened his eyes, he was stunned. All the bandits were lying on the pavement. They were dead. Shu gritted his teeth, not understanding what happened so quickly. Among the corpses, like an angel of death, stood Feng with an arrow in his hand. Beneath him was a whole mountain of dead black axes. Feng rushed to catch up with their leader, Du Xiao. Taking aim, the young man threw a black arrow at him. The bandit howled in pain as the arrow pierced him through like paper. Shu was horrified. It was unimaginable. This young man was different from the Feng Yun he remembered. The young man invited Shu to follow him to the Black Axe's lair. Shu was stunned. Why did they need to go there? Feng calmly said. They need to be killed. They are a threat to the shelter. The guy was very afraid to go. Axes are strong fighters. You can't cope with them. Feng Yun objected. He was also a strong fighter. The director said that if Feng promised to return safely, she would not stop him and would report everything to the police. At this time, Xiaodan brought out Feng's backpack. She asked him not to go overboard with the bandits. The director had long since realized that Feng had donated that money, having earned it by hunting monsters. He has already become so grown up, he has become a real man. The Black Axes feasted in their lair, celebrating another victory. Soon their gang will become the richest and most powerful in the entire outer city of the Starlight Base. The door slammed, the leader smiled, the deputy head arrived. Suddenly someone threw something that looked like chalk on the table. The round knot flew straight to the gang leader. After turning over several plates of food, the knot stopped. After untying the knot, everyone saw Du Xiao's severed head there. The bandits were horrified at who could have done this to him. Is the deputy head really dead? He is a very strong fighter. The leader broke into a wicked smile. A young man stood at the threshold of the hall. It was he who threw the bundle with the head. The leader rushed towards the young man, asking how he dared to attack a member of the Black Axes. Chief Black Axe Lu Muqin was confident of his victory. Feng Yun calmly waited for the enemy. A couple more seconds and the muscular bandit will fly up to the fragile young man. Everyone froze, wondering why this boy with a sword didn't run away. Shu cursed, was Feng really that strong? But will the boy be able to measure his strength against Liu Mutian? A golden light swirled around the young man as he protected himself from the blows. Shu was stunned. It was a perfect golden dome. He was probably sleeping. Having been to the black market all the time, Feng had already figured out what kind of person Liu Mutian was. The energies of the two fighters met. The gang leader was thrown back by the blow. Feng Yun swooped down on the bandit like a hawk. The young man grabbed Liu by the head and slammed it on the floor. Everyone watched the fight with bated breath. No one expected such an outcome. Sensing that death was approaching, the gang leader screamed. All the axes were shocked. This kid defeated their leader. Feng Yu couldn't believe that Liu Mutian lost. Feng held his hand on the bandit's face. One move and Liu would die. The leader Toporov begged the young man to spare him. The guy snorted, so Liu wouldn't put a spoke in his wheel later. No way. Turning to Shu, Feng said that the rest were on him. The gang members were scared to death. They looked in horror at the two guys approaching them. After Liu Mutian's death, there was no one to protect them. The bandits fell to their knees and greeted the new leader in unison. Feng was not interested and left the hall. Suddenly, he saw that he had received a message. He turned on the map to see what was there. The academy announced the start of inter-school trials. Mirror asked. It seemed like the young man had been waiting for this day. If Feng wins, he will have the right to live in the inner city. It seems the director gave him these pills so that he could bring glory to Hailan during the trials. It's time to repay the old man. Mirror smiled. There are many strong fighters in the inner city. They can be copied for training. Shu asked Feng if he could take control of the black axes. The young man replied that he didn't care and didn't want to bother with them. But Shu must not rely on others. First of all, his personal strength. Today the guy saw what power means. Feng single-handedly defeated an entire gang. The young man told Shu to look after the shelter, and he swore to protect them with his chest. After returning home, Feng began training again. He fought with Zhang again, while thinking about the shelter. There is little time. I need to focus on cultivation and have time to train Shu. Feng heard that all the participants in the trials were high-ranking masters, and if he wanted to win, he would need to seriously level up. The youth fatally wounded Zhang's projection, but despite the victory, he got nothing. He fought again and won, still nothing. Another fight, and again 0. The guy fought battles again and again. There were still no drops. Feng declared the fight again. Mirror was pleased. In a couple of months, Feng Yun had understood a lot. She congratulated the young man. He received the 3rd-level skill Tyrant Practitioner. Feng said to accept, and suddenly a sharp pain pierced his body. He grabbed his head and screamed at how much it hurt. It pierces every cell of the body, as if it were being bitten by thousands of ants. Mirror explained that this is a 3rd-level practice one can relax, and if he loses consciousness, he will not feel pain. Feng laughed. He would never faint in front of a girl. Returning to the room, the young man immersed himself in cultivation. Mirror noticed that Feng had been cultivating all night. His foundation should have stabilized. Once the tyrant is fully mastered, he will be able to form a shield that can withstand any blow from an alloy weapon. Xu reformed the Black Axe Gang into the Dawn Society. Seeing Feng, the bandits bowed, and the young man asked to call the boss. The frightened bandit rushed to carry out the order. Xu was very happy about Feng Shu's visit. The young man needed help. Xu was ready to do anything. Feng asked them all to shoot alloy arrows at him. Everyone was taken aback by such a strange request. The bandits begged Yun to spare them. They decided that he was looking for an excuse to kill them. Xu asked. Feng was joking. Even the Golden Dome couldn't withstand this. The young man smiled. He wanted to try something new. The guy was surprised. He mastered the new technique so quickly, he was actually sleeping. The bandits armed themselves with bows, and Xu commanded them to get ready. On command, they all shot at Feng Yun. A hail of arrows fell upon the young man. He concentrated and raised the tyrant's shield. As a result, none of the arrows fired even touched him. The arrows flew off and broke. The tyrant's power was very impressive. Having thanked for the help, the young man went about his business. Xu was speechless as to what kind of technique this was. It seemed like Feng had reached an unimaginable stage of cultivation. One of the bandits asked how old Boss Yun was. Xu replied, 15. The former axes were stunned, then they were incapable scum. The day of exams for the 4 academies has arrived. Feng Yun entered the director's office. The rest of the competition participants had already gathered there. The director smiled and Feng Yun came. The senior frowned. Who is this? Another cadet decided that the boy looked arrogant. The large student thought he had heard this name before. Bai frowned, so Yun was one of the participants. Mao mentally told Feng not to hope for victory. Yang Tian dreamed of settling scores with the boy. Mirror said they are all high-ranking masters. Feng Yun must not relax. The exam will not be easy. The director said that now everything is in place. We can move out. All the cadets headed towards the transport waiting for them. Feng arrived in the inner city 5 months after appearing in this world. He looked out the bus window at the inner city of the Starlight Base. The walls of the inner city are much higher than those of the outer city, and the material used to make them is different. The bus pulled up to giant strong gates. Everything here is built from alloy. The outer city is lagging far behind. Almost all the people here are cultivators. There is probably no safer place. Soon they arrived at the gates of Starlight Academy. The guys looked around. This is the famous academy. The director warned that getting here is not so easy. You will have to take part in a test. Feng Yun heard the sound of approaching buses. Representatives from the other 3 academies arrived. It was clear that the guys arrived strong. They got off the buses and headed towards the gates. They were all determined to win the competition. One of the leaders laughed. Hailan is a bit early today. It won't improve the results. There's no point in giving the students false hope. The old master was contorted. Feng watched closely. Suddenly he saw a monster flying towards them. The giant bird screamed loudly when it saw the people. The students tensed up. Before them was a griffin, a 3rd-rank monster, controlled by a man. Feng was delighted. He finally met the monster rider. I wonder what stage of cultivation it is at now. The helmeted griffin screamed again. The rider's face was calm and stern. Everyone dispersed, seeing that the rider was descending. The griffin landed near the academy gates next to the guests. Li Feng, a top-ranked master, walked towards the boys. The heads of the 3 academies lavished praise on the examiner. Feng Yun was surprised that his director was silent, but he explained that in an era where the strong were revered, relationships were not built on sycophancy. The young man looked at Li Feng's characteristics. Yun asked if Mirror had scanned the director of the Hailan Academy. She replied that Feng would not be able to defeat his copy now. He asked if his grandfather probably had powerful techniques. Mirror smiled when he defeats Li Feng and finds out. The examiner announced that this test was different from previous years. The heads of the academies listened attentively. This year the students will be challenged to cross the forest. The old man said so the information was true. 40 students are waiting for them in the forest. By defeating them, the boys will be able to take their place. Bai chuckled. They decided to pit them against the academy students. There are 3 ways to enter this academy. Become a master at 13, be born in the inner city, or pass an exam. This means that their opponents are already at the level of entry-level masters. They will try to maintain their position and curry favor. If Feng Yun is surrounded by at least 2 masters, he will lose. He asked Mirror to reduce Li Feng's strength to that of an ordinary person. Yun would immediately fight him. The girl asked if he was sure. A projection of Li Feng emerged from the mirror. The young man was sure that he would get something worthwhile. But the examiner's projection turned out to be surprisingly strong. Feng Yun was killed instantly. The young man was surprised how this was possible. He still uses techniques. Yun needs to dodge and then strike. The new technique will help him pass the exam. Farming and defending at the same time is very risky. Li Feng's copy killed him time after time. He remembered the mirror's instructions. We need to hold out until Li dies from his own power. But he's insanely strong. 24 hours were allocated for the exam. Will Feng make it in time? Meanwhile, deep in the forest, students were killing newcomers. They were sure that training people from the outer city was a waste of resources. A shaking Bai watched as the boys were killed. He was terrified of how he would pass the exam. Feng Yun was still in the mirror space. During another battle, he realized that this was his chance. At that moment, an academy student was sneaking up on him in the forest. The student grinned. Here's the little mouse. Yun was delighted. He did not die. He won the fight. The enemy raised his sword over the young man's head, but he hissed at him. Suddenly, the student received a fatal blow. Feng Yun tried out the technique he had just received. He said that since he called himself an enemy, there was no point in expecting any leniency. The guy who had already killed several guys was stunned. Feng Yun thanked him for the opportunity to practice the new technique. The wounded student did not understand how it was possible with one blow. The young man smiled. This is a 3rd-level technique, Shadow Strike. The defeated student was left lying on the path. Feng Yun walked forward. The entrance examination began. Meanwhile, controversy raged at Starlight Academy. Principal Hailan was outraged by the exam. The old man exclaimed, "If they don't want to accept students from the outer city, let them say so. Why these sacrifices?" The director of Starlight objected. The old man was wrong. There is always a place ready for him in their academy. But he replied that if none of his guys survived, he would leave the base. Stepping on Bayu's chest, the student suggested calling for help. Mao Yuxiu and Yang Tian were already injured. The student laughed. Then he would kill the boy as a lesson to others. The guy screamed, thirsting for blood. He used the heavenly step technique to give chase. The student felt someone quickly approaching him. Is this level 2 technique really a leap forward? Feng hid behind a tree, wondering whether to attack or not. There seems to be only one enemy, which means Feng Yun should win. The young man instantly moved towards the enemy. The student saw a boy appearing nearby. He exclaimed, "This is really a giant step." The student laughed. He could do that too. Feng stopped and waited for the enemy. and he attacked the youth using the technique of random strikes. Yun responded with a first-level slashing technique. The opponents clashed, but no one was hurt. The young man still missed one hit. Having flown a little, he still remained on his feet. The student chuckled, but the boy was just a coward and decided to escape with a giant leap. The amused student decided to give a final kick. Feng Yun smiled, and the student was taken in. Suddenly, the young man realized that there was someone else here, and he needed to use a shadow strike. The student shouted to his friend. The boy was like an eel on a frying pan. The second one jumped up and suggested wearing the boy out. So this is who Feng Yun sensed behind his back. He chuckled. That's how students are. Suddenly, thick trees fell, cut down by a powerful blow. Feng barely managed to dodge. Both students froze. Someone stronger was walking towards them. The frightened students asked Sun Shi if he had gone crazy. The one who came out of the thicket told his friends that they were no different from them. In other words, they drop out of the exam as weaklings. Feng dived into the mirror space to check the level of the new opponent. 19-year-old Sun Shi turned out to be a mid-ranking master. The young man cursed how his students could even defeat him. Mirror said what's more important is that his lightweight technique is much stronger than his 7-league stride. Feng won't be able to escape. 3 academy students were advancing on the young man. Yun said that since it was impossible to escape, he would not try. He used a new 3rd-level technique, Shadow Strike. An invisible attack rushed towards the opponents. One of the students gasped in confusion and fell to the ground. The second one looked around in confusion, but was soon also amazed. Sun Shi swung his sword and exclaimed, this was how the boy hid his strength. But this time it was even more interesting for Shi. He had an opponent. He approached the boy with lightning speed. Sun Shi raised his sword over Feng Yun and said, the exam is over. The young man understood that he wouldn't be able to dodge. The only thing left to do is to defend ourselves with the help of the tyrant's practice. The sword strike did not damage Feng, only knocking him aside. Yun hit the tree hard. Shi is very strong. The student learned the tyrant's practice, but the young man had not yet reached the rank of master. Very interesting. Lightning flashed in Sun Shi's hand. He jumped up, laughed so cheerfully, and dealt a powerful blow to the young man. The guy was genuinely having fun hunting the boy. He used the 3rd-level technique Earthclaw. Powerful streams of energy rushed across the earth in different directions. Feng defended himself again with the tyrant's technique. But he understood that if things continued like this, it would be the end for him. Pushing off the ground, Shi rushed at the stubborn boy. He struck Yun with his sword, but he dodged it, his defensive technique working flawlessly. With a swing of his sword, Sun Shi easily cut down huge trees. All this amused him immensely. A couple of gifts and the thick trunk broke into several thick stumps. All these tree parts flew at Feng, but the young man fought them off. Please see screamed weakly, too weakly. Oh noticed that the boy's blows were becoming weaker and weaker. Mirror said that it was the Shadow Strike technique that would help him survive today. She approached. He used the 3rd-level technique Diamond Fist. Yun calmly looked at the enemy's approaching hand. The student said with a laugh that he would kill the boy with one blow. Suddenly, Shi flinched. His attack was blocked. The young man grabbed Sun Shi's hand as soon as she approached. The enraged boy asked if the boy had really gathered all his strength in his hands to block his blow. She said contemptuously that the young man was a fool. But Feng smiled. That's not all. Yun has developed his Shadow Strike to perfection, so he can strike at any time. Looking at the defeated enemy, Feng sighed with relief. The young man took Sun Shi's sword. It is lawful spoils. Suddenly he heard someone calling him. Feng turned around. These were the guys from his school. Bai asked how Feng was able to defeat Shi. He was a mid-ranking master after all. Taking off the cloak from the corpse, Yun replied, nothing can be done. This is no longer an exam. Now it is either you or you. The young man looked sternly at the others. From now on, anyone who stands in his way will die. At Starlight Academy, they were awaiting the return of the students, and were puzzled as to why no one had returned yet. They sent their worst students, of course, but Sun Shi was there as a backup. Suddenly, the Academy's leaders heard a desperate plea for salvation. Everyone was sure that it was a student breaking through from the outer city, but what they saw shocked the teachers. How could this happen in the elite Starlight Academy? This is simply an unprecedented disgrace. Their student ran to them and begged the teacher to save him from death. The guy's coat was torn. He himself was seriously injured and frightened. The professors jumped up from their seats. No one understood what had happened, and who had treated their student this way. The bleeding guy said that one person did all this. The professors were outraged. The student dared to break the rules. Why didn't Li Feng monitor this? The shaking guy said that this monster had smashed everyone. The director of Starlight couldn't understand what was going on there. Suddenly, right before the professor's eyes, the last of the sent students was killed by a shadow strike. The leaders of the prestigious academy were shocked. A group of students from the outer city emerged from the forest, led by a slender young man. It was Feng Yun, wearing the cloak of a Starlight student. Looking at the dead opponent, he said, "It seems the exam is over." The teachers saw with horror that the boy was smiling. The director sternly asked the young man what he was doing, how he dared to kill an academy student in front of their eyes. Feng asked with a smirk, "Did the rules say that you can't kill? Well, then they broke the rule by trying to kill him." The professor frowned. The young man dared to undermine the authority of the academy, then he would have to accept punishment. Yun stood stubbornly with a sword in his hand and waited for the teachers to decide. Right in front of the teachers, their student was sprawled on the stone slabs. Suddenly a griffin appeared over the square. The chief examiner and the director of the Highland Academy jumped down from above. The examiner sternly ordered everyone to stand still. Lee walked up to the guy lying on the ground. He was still alive. The teacher ordered to take the wounded man to the hospital. He will live. The director informed Lee that this young man had dared to harm an academy student before their very eyes. Lee turned to Feng. Judging by the wounds, it was he who had beaten 39 students. Yun smiled. It really was so. The old professor hoped that Lee would not severely punish the student who had approached the exam so responsibly. Lee replied that their students were not hothouse plants. All survivors of the trial will receive treatment, and teachers are prohibited from taking revenge for their students. One of the professors tried to object. Lee cut him off. The exam is over. Everyone who has reached this point is enrolled in the academy. Feng Yun was delighted. This is so cool. Each student has their own house and yard. Everything here is much more expensive than in the shelter. Feng heard that he had a new message. Entering the house, Yun was surprised that there were computers in this world. The computer works on formations. Then it's better to call it a farmer. No, it's better to call it an energizer. The young man began to study the information. He saw the introductory information about the academy for newcomers. It turns out that at Starlight, students aren't divided into classes, they choose their own courses, and their tuition at the academy is paid for with points. Feng can copy, so there is no point in paying him for the skills. The only thing that attracts him here is the Tower of Pure Energy. In the exam, Feng beat 40 students and earned 400 points. This is only enough for 4 hours of cultivation on the first floor. The second floor costs 500 points per hour, the third one 1,000 points. It would be great to build an energy accumulation formation myself. There are 4 professions in this world. The first is warrior. The second alchemist has an innate talent for the elements of wood or fire. The third profession is an artifact master with an innate talent for fire or metal. And the fourth are extremely rare formation masters with innate spiritual talent. In order to copy the formation master, Feng still needs to acquire spiritual talent. But right now, there are more important things to do. During the exam, the young man noticed that he was expending energy uncontrollably during a protracted battle. Now that attributes can constantly consume energy from the environment, it is necessary to reach the master rank as quickly as possible. The students discussed the appearance of a fierce disciple from the outer city. Regardless, it was unforgivable that some trash from the outer city defeated 40 academy students. The guys decided to teach Feng a lesson so that he would leave the academy himself and take the rest of the scum with him. Meanwhile, Feng was training continuously. Every day he became stronger. One day he felt that his body was behaving unusually. He looked at his hands in surprise. A huge stream of energy swirled around the young man. The students asked each other who was there and where this energy came from. It's amazing what power. Could this really be a top-ranking master? Feng was pleased. He trained for half a month and finally broke through to the level of master at the age of 15. Having looked at his characteristics, the young man exclaimed joyfully, "Not bad for such an age." Mira reminded him that Feng already had a talent for metal, wind, and water, and it would be useful to practice them together. It's time to wander around the area in search of new targets to scan. After leaving home, Yun was confident that he would quickly find talent, that practices and talents with attributes will be on a silver platter for him. The next day, he went to the common room where most of the students were. A disappointed Feng yelled that there was nothing but pathetic scum around. He wandered around the area all day, but found no one worthwhile. None of the students even have high-level practices. Mira reassured him, the academy is big, real talent should be in the central area. The next day, Feng went to the central area of the Starlight base. He wanted to get into the main hall of the academy and the Tower of Pure Energy. The young man was interested. The tower building was the same as in the Manhwa from his world. Is it possible to sneak into the tower? Yun entered the main hall of the academy, and suddenly a whisper ran through the ranks of students. Yang Ming, the 7th strongest, appeared in the hall. It seemed like he had just returned from a mission. And apparently, Yang Ming has already accepted a new assignment. Doesn't he even need rest? Feng opened his mouth in surprise. A practitioner with a 3rd-level metal attribute. The young man looked at the description of the object being scanned. That's what he needed. He has a mid-rank attribute, that's luck. Yun shouted to the mirror to get to work. One of the students looked at Feng and asked if this guy was drooling over Ming. Feng really did look strange, and the guys decided that he was a pervert. The young man went to look for other talents. At the same time, he farmed Ming in the mirror space. Now Feng's body no longer froze when he dived into the training space. In the mirror space, Feng fought with a copy of Ming. The older student proved to be a truly worthy opponent. The young man did not find a single other talent in the main hall. To enter the tower, you need to earn points. Yun smiled. There it was. He had defeated the copy of Ming. Blood gushed from U's mouth. He was killed. The guy was surprised now. Defeating a mid-ranking master was much easier for him than during the exam. Mirror congratulated him. He knocked out a talent for mid-rank metal on his first try. Now Feng's connection with the metal attribute is much higher than Ming's. The young man was delighted. All that was left was to knock out the practice of metal shine. The girl asked if Feng needed practice before going on a mission. It turned out the young man had a better plan. Having improved his abilities, he wanted to go to the arena. There he will be able to earn points and find talents. After a month of regular battles, Feng finally achieved what he wanted. After another victory over Ming's copy, he received the long-awaited prize. Now he has the third-level practice of metal shine. This practice had 3 stages of development. Unfortunately, Ming only developed this practice to the middle stage. To bring it to perfection, Feng will have to put in his own efforts. Having locked himself in the house, the young man began to cultivate. After some time, he decided to test his strength in the arena and earn points. Yun went to the academy's training room. Among the numerous training devices, there was an obelisk for determining attack force. 1 lit stone means the attack of a low-ranking master. 2 stones the level of a mid-ranking master, and so on. And then Feng heard someone calling him. Behind him stood the students who were going to teach the young man a lesson. They suggested that he immediately get out of here back to the outer city if he valued his life. He did not deserve to be here. But Yun didn't pay any attention to the bullies. Concentrating, the young man pressed the power determination obelisk. The students fell silent. 1 stone caught fire. The boys snorted contemptuously, but now 2 were already on fire. Suddenly the 3rd stone also caught fire. The students couldn't believe their eyes. The power of a top-ranking master. Feng was pleased with the result. Now he can talk to the guys. Turning to the shaking trio, Yun asked what they had said. Feng, blazing with anger, walked towards the senior students. But they immediately changed the subject, saying that the weather was not very good today. Chatting all sorts of nonsense, the bullies hurried to get out of the training room. Mirror congratulated Feng. His strength had grown to that of a high-ranking master. But the young man was upset. He thought his attack would be even stronger. You will have to complete several tasks battles. With the best help you become stronger. The young man decided not to waste time. Yun went back to the main common hall of the academy. Behind the main hall, the coveted tower of pure energy sparkled and beckoned. The tasks are divided into ranks according to difficulty. White rank is suitable for entry-level masters, gray for intermediate, and red for the highest. White rank is a waste of time. It's worth starting with gray. The students asked each other who this guy was, and what he was doing in the department with the gray assignments. Feng chose the task of capturing members of the Bloodthorn Alliance. The reward was 2,000 points. The boys were puzzled as to whether the boy was really going to take on a gray-ranked task. The students were whispering. The guy decided to go against the Bloodthorn. It's suicide. Mirror warned Feng that he would attract a lot of attention. But the young man explained that they had something he needed. Feng headed to the Starlight Base Law Enforcement Headquarters. The detachment of law enforcement officers was in full force. Zhong Tao, the squad leader, reported that someone had accepted the task of eliminating the Bloodthorn. A card of the student who took the task appeared. Joey asked why the hell a low-ranking boy would take this task. Sun Xiaomei noticed, 15 years old and already a master, a real talent. Wu Hualin smiled, in battle. The most important thing is not cultivation but experience. The leader of the squad calmed everyone down. The young man was almost here. Since he is their junior classmate, they need to take care of him during the mission. At this moment the door opened and Feng Yun entered. After greeting them, he asked if they had posted the task to find an alliance. Zhong Tao came out to greet him with a smile and confirmed the assignment. He extended his hand to Feng and said that he was glad to meet him. The young man shook Zhong's strong hand, and the leader of the squad introduced himself. Then Tao introduced his guys. Feng immediately noticed Xiaomei, a master with a wood attribute, and even a mid-rank one, a wonderful gift. With the attributes of wood and fire, Yun can become an alchemist. But as for how to fight the girl, Feng declared that he would not raise his hand against her. Hualun indignantly asked why Feng was staring at Xiaomei like that. Wasn't it a bit early for him? The commander told Feng that since this was his first mission, he just needed to keep an eye on the rear. Hualun was indignant. They were not nannies. but Wei reminded him how he himself accidentally took on the first task, which was beyond his strength. The law enforcement officer grimaced. He hadn't gone to the department specifically to handle gray-level assignments. Tao ordered Hualin to shut up. They would start in 2 hours. As soon as it got dark, the detachment arrived at one of the restaurants in the inner city. The powerful Tao pushed aside the container that covered the secret passage. The squad members ran to the lair of the secret union. Fan was left outside. He decided to wait and farm copies in the meantime. Soon, law enforcement officers approached the secret room. There were only 4 people there. They were drinking and laughing. Zhong Tao, armed with a hammer, cautiously entered the room. Hualin rushed at the merry bandits with a spear, but suddenly the bandits jumped up and the table exploded. The members of the secret union laughed, so the law enforcement officers came, which means they will die. Feng was perplexed in theory. It was secret societies that were supposed to carry out raids at night, not law enforcement agencies. Hualin felt an enemy approaching him from behind. The fighter dodged using his spear. He lunged, but the bandit managed to jump back. Zhou Wei was also attacked by a dual-wielding alliance member. He prepared to repel the attack. The bandit laughed and shouted for Zhou to die, but Wei lunged and dealt the bandit a significant blow. Tao and Xiaomei ran into the room to help their friends. 2 enemies with knives were flying towards the leader of the squad from behind. Tao's huge hammer burst into flames. Zhong swung his massive hammer, and suddenly their enemies seemed to vanish into thin air. Tao was stunned. All the bandits disappeared at once. Hualin opened his mouth in surprise, wondering what had happened. The squad leader cursed. The information was incorrect. Zhong shouted at Wei to be careful. He was under attack. But Wei didn't have time to react before he was wounded by a bandit. Tao realized that the Union didn't have just one person with the attribute of darkness, they all had it. Hualin objected. This is impossible. This attribute is incredibly rare. How could there be 5 owners? The fighters took up a circular defense. Now someone tried to attack Tao. Xiaomei realized that this was why they were always able to stealthily assassinate the high-ranking officials of the base. Hualin said that we need to leave. Even if they have a low-ranking attribute, without practice with the attribute, they are not their opponents. But Tao was afraid that they had fallen into a trap. The 5th assassin had disappeared immediately, and Feng Yun had probably already been dealt with. A desperate cry was heard near the entrance to the secret shelter. The 5th killer received a powerful blow and fell to the ground. Feng noticed the secret enemy in time. He asked how many more bandits were inside and who had a talent for the dark attribute. Yun's sword was very close to the bandit's chest, which encouraged frankness. The killer laughed. There were 4 of them, and they all had the talent of darkness. This was definitely the end for such a brat. The young man smiled. The bandit was wrong to think so. Having killed the enemy, Feng cursed at why they were so noisy. Mirror did not advise Feng to save them. He could be exposed. And this time, the director of Heilun Academy will not help him. But Yun did not want to see the death of the squad members, but he would kill without hesitation those who repay good with evil. Mirror sighed. She understood this guy's character better and better. His path would not be easy, had she really made the wrong choice. Tao asked who had a working communication device. It turned out that no one had one. Apparently there was a jammer here. Xiaomei was sure that they needed to hold out until Dawn headquarters would send someone for them. Zhang Tao objected. The bandits would simply kill everyone they sent, only if real masters arrived. Hualin sighed. It's unlikely that this is the end for them. The girl encouraged her colleagues. They mustn't lose heart. Maybe they'll still manage to escape. Suddenly, Xiaomei heard a desperate cry of pain. The boys called out to Mei in chorus with concern. The killer's dagger flashed right in front of the girl's face. For some reason, the bandit suddenly became visible. Mei looked at the knife in confusion. The killer clenched his teeth in pain as blood flowed down his neck. The dead bandit fell, and everyone saw Feng Yun standing behind him with a sword in his hands. Mei looked at the student in confusion. The young man struck a precise blow and killed another enemy. As he fell, the defeated enemy whispered that it was impossible. Feng jumped and struck the 3rd member of the secret alliance with his sword. Yun said quietly, "There is still one left." The young man methodically fought off the last bandit. Mei was surprised how Feng could even see them, since he was only a low-ranking master. Feng had no idea that a mirror could be used in this way. Having spotted the enemy, Yun used the slashing technique. Finally, the last bandit was killed. Feng breathed a sigh of relief. He wearily told the others they had won. Everyone ran to the young man, vying with each other to ask how he did it. Feng smiled. He has a sensitive nose, and these guys smell so bad. Hualin asked in surprise, was he serious? Mei realized the guy was trying to avoid answering. Tao stopped questioning. The task was completed. They were returning to headquarters. Zhou Wei urgently needed a blood transfusion. In the morning, the squad, along with Feng, had a friendly breakfast. The commander asked Zhou Wei how he was feeling. He smiled, The blood had already been transfused, so we could eat and go on to the next mission. Zhongtao thanked Feng again. If it weren't for him, they wouldn't be sitting here now. Yun smiled. He was just lucky. And if the bandits didn't have the attribute of darkness, the guys would have quickly dealt with them. Mei said it was definitely a trap. Someone tipped them off. Tao informed Feng that he had conveyed the information about the successful completion of the mission, so he can come back right after breakfast. Feng understood that the guys wanted to talk without him, but he himself did not want to get involved in their problems. He returned to his little house at the academy. Unfortunately, the copied bandits only have low-ranking dark attributes. Mirror smiled. Stop grumbling. The attribute of darkness is extremely rare. Moreover, he has 4 with this attribute. By combining them together, Feng can obtain a darkness talent close to the middle rank. With this talent, one can even injure a high-ranking master. Although most likely the next moment you will already be dead. Feng smiled. He was ready to start training. After half a month, Yun felt dark energy. It is not as sharp as metal, not as soft as water, it is calm. Although Feng has not yet cultivated the practice with the darkness attribute, he already feels a connection with the environment. The young man earned 2,000 points. Now he can look into the energy tower. He went to the tower that beckoned him so much. Here are the treasured doors. A few more steps and he will be inside. The system informed the student of his balance of 2,400 points. Feng Yun entered the pure energy tower. Above his head rose floors with cultivation rooms. Unusual devices concentrated different types of energy. The young man headed to the spare room. There was an energy circle in front of him. The whole space was glowing with energy. Positioned in the center of the circle, Feng felt that the energy of each element here was much denser than outside. This is the best place for cultivation. Yun immersed himself in cultivation. The student in the next room was very surprised why the energy suddenly became so rarefied. An hour later, Yun exclaimed how cool it was. He was practically on fire. He needs to become stronger as soon as possible. It's decided. He'll go to the 3rd floor. At the 3rd level, an hour costs 1,000 points, which is enough for 2 hours. The young man saw a free room and headed towards it. One could only hope that it was worth it. Feng approached the terminal to pay for his stay. He had already brought the card up when someone called out to him. Some guy asked Feng if he didn't know the rules. It was customary to reserve seats on the higher floors. The young man asked in surprise why they needed to be reserved. The stranger said that the higher the level, the fewer rooms there were, and if they weren't booked, there would be a queue. Feng asked how to book. The guy smiled. Of course he did. Having hit the extortionist, the young man asked how much it would cost to reserve. Falling to his knees, the boy whispered, 1,000. Feng thanked for the 1,000. Now you can pay here for 3 hours. He had already paid for his stay when the command to stand was heard from behind. Yun thought irritably, again, although the extra points wouldn't hurt him. The young men decided that in front of them was a man who collected money from the students in the tower. But the door of the cultivation room had already opened in front of Feng. The bet demanded that the student stop, but the doors had already slammed behind him. It was impossible to break into the room. All that was left was to wait. The mirror instantly copied the Swordsman brothers. Feng saw these two among the strongest in the academy. The Yang brothers are called the Twin Star Blades. If Feng succeeds in mastering the way of the sword, he will have no equal among ordinary people. Having settled into the circle, Yun decided to cultivate and farm the Yang brothers at the same time. The Yans turned out to be very strong and inseparable. Even fighting together, it is impossible to separate them to farm alone. But perhaps Mirror deliberately chose not to separate them. But since that was the case, Yun generated a second sword for himself. The copies of the Swordsman brothers fought fiercely. Finally, the young man managed to defeat one of them. The second copy continued to fight. The defeated one, dying, threw his sword at his opponent. In such battles, 3 hours flew by unnoticed. The young man opened his eyes and suddenly felt danger. A sword from one of the Yang brothers was flying straight at him. Yang Chuanming was surprised that with his sword, it seemed like he was about to fly. The swordsman asked in confusion what was happening. What was wrong with the sword? The brothers realized that someone was cultivating the way of the sword in the energy tower, but it was impossible. Feng has received 1 mid-rank sword path talent and the stone strike technique so far, but he already felt control over the sword, as if it had become an extension of his hand. And then the system told the young man that he did not have enough funds. Yun sighed at how quickly 3 hours had flown by, and he had only just begun. The young man went back to the main hall of the academy. He needed more points. Would he really have to work again? And then Yun heard the guys from Hailan Academy calling him. They wanted to thank Feng for his help. It was only thanks to him that they were here. Mao Yongshui asked if they could do tasks together. Feng wondered if he took them, they would limit him. But on the other hand, they were a good cover. Yun agreed and invited the boys to follow him. Mao asked where they were going. Feng replied with a smile, they were going to hit the jackpot. They approached the training room, Bai said skeptically. The records here were set by monsters from the inner academy. Yun smiled. Because of the high difficulty, the reward was also high, 100,000 points. The main hall of the academy began to stir as a new record was set. It was amazing. No one had set any new records in the last 10 years. Everyone was asking each other who this record holder was. The name on the board was Bai Tianchen, a 15-year-old student. 4 guys from the outer city were in the training room. Yun asked Bai if he had any points on his balance. He replied, yes, everything worked out. Feng said, now it's Yang Tian's turn, he will set the record. The young man gratefully handed Yun his card. Inserting the card into the machine, Feng replied, it's nothing. Yun concentrated, calculating the force of the blow. He struck a special apparatus. Feng cursed, he had overdone it a bit. The device showed 10 tons, 126 kilograms. Jan's eyes widened in surprise. He had never had such strength. The students in the hall started making noise. Another record. Impossible. Who is this Yang Tian? Mao Yungshu handed over her card and thanked Feng. The young man struck the device again. Now the scoreboard showed 10 tons, 134 kilograms. Yun was pleased. That was better. A crowd has already gathered near the training room. The new record holder is already a girl. What nonsense. A group of senior teachers walked towards the training room. Li asked menacingly where the new record holders were. Everyone pointed to the door of the training room. Then the doors opened and 3 guys came out into the hall. Li asked them if they were the ones who set the new records. The boys looked down and confirmed that it was them. Yun used the invisibility of the dark attribute for the first time. It worked well. No one even noticed how he came out. Each of the guys gave him 50,000 points, a great way to earn money. They met again on the 5th floor of the energy tower. But Mao thought it was unfair that Yun had left them so many points there for nothing. Feng smiled. It would be useful for him if they leveled up too. The guys were ready to break through. Then the tasks would be easier to complete. The students from the outer city shouted forward in unison. Yun spent 9 hours cultivating on the 5th floor. During this time, he learned the practice of the 2nd-level darkness attribute Shadow. Moreover, he finally made a breakthrough and became a mid-ranking master. The rate of absorption of dark energy has increased many times over. It remains to find practices with the attributes of water and wind. Feng knew that if he reached the point of merging with the environment, then he would rise to the top. After leaving the room, Yun was thinking about how to obtain a new practice with an attribute. Bai called out to Feng, who had come out earlier and was waiting for him. Yun asked where the others were. It turned out they were in class, but Bai didn't have any today. Feng completely forgot that he was a student himself and had to attend classes. He was only thinking about points that he even forgot to choose classes. Bai was surprised. How so? Classes on techniques and practices are incredibly useful. It dawned on Yunya that he could copy his teachers in class. Bai diligently advised the young man about teachers, telling him about each one. Yuntian's persistence was already irritating Feng greatly. Finally, Yun chose 10 teachers he liked. Bai didn't understand how Yun was going to attend classes if they were held at the same time. Feng explained that he would see whose classes were more interesting. The young man was sure that teachers were people with attributive practices. Yun asked Bai to wait for him near the academic building, saying that he would return soon. Bai thought with horror that he could not understand Feng's actions at all. The young man approached the audience that was first on his list. After a short pause, Feng entered the classroom. The lesson was in full swing. The teacher looked at the late student in surprise. But Yun calmly walked into the auditorium and sat down. Mao Yungshu was very surprised to see Feng. The teacher was shocked. This guy was late for half the class. He neglects the academy so much. Mao was very happy. Now she could study with Yun. But after sitting for a few minutes, Feng stood up from his seat. The girl couldn't understand what was going on, why Yun was leaving. The students watched the strange young man with surprised glances. The teacher was furious. Yun looked at Wang Guitian's data. He's too weak. He's too lazy to even farm it. Next on Feng's list was class 407. In 15 minutes, Yun visited 9 teachers, none of whom had any experience with the attribute. Last class, if nothing happens again, you'll have to farm the tree attribute and Sun Xiao Mei practices. Feng looked around to see who was here. His gaze fell on the slender female legs in shoes. The beauty turned out to be a teacher. She introduced herself to the class, saying that she Rojan, was their teacher. The boys were delighted. What a beauty. It was no wonder they chose this item. The girl smiled. Her beauty struck them instantly, but she would strike them with her strength. And then the surprised Zhouzhan saw that one of the students was leaving the class. Feng smiled. He finally found what he needed. Wu Xi has a mid-rank water talent and a 3rd-level water attribute practice. Mirror explained that the attributes of water and wood provide a restorative and healing effect. Feng left the training building. He planned to complete tasks and farm at the same time. Bai exclaimed with delight. Feng has no idea who he just met. It was Lin Chang, who entered the academy because he had broken through to the master level. Feng remembered. Chang was the first one he copied. Bai told Yun that Lin Chang was looking for him for some reason. At this time, Lin Chang turned to the young man and asked if he was Feng Yun. Lin had heard about Feng's strength, and they were also from the same school. The guy said that he had business with Yun. Feng and Bai went with the guy to find out more details. Lin Chang showed his family's quest. Although the difficulty was listed as red, the actual rank was gray. The reward was 50,000. Chang asked. Feng, with his strength, would not refuse such a chance. The young man smiled naturally. He wouldn't refuse. From his first victory over Shi Rojan, Feng obtained the third-level technique, Falling Petals Palm. Mirror was having fun. Feng is so careful in fights with girls. He only beat Shi on the 5th try, so. And then there's Sun Xiaomei. Yun asked if Mirror could put a hood on the girls' heads. She smirked. Did Feng really think the enemy girl would have a hood? Feng and Bai went to the Lin estate, Bai trying to persuade the young man to abandon the mission. But Yun said that if Bai was afraid, he could leave. At this time, the gates of the estate opened and Chang came out. The guy smiled. With such punctuality, they will definitely become the strongest. Bai was contorted, and Yun responded with courtesy. The guys are just in time, the head of the family and the consultants are just discussing this issue. Feng asked if the Storm Squad had attacked someone from their family. Chang confirmed that they had attacked his cousin's trading caravan. They not only brutally killed Brother Chang, but also left their mark. If the family tolerates this, no one will want to have anything to do with them anymore. The boy knocked on the door of his uncle's office, the head of the Lin family. Bai was mentally indignant at how much pathos there was in these Lins. In addition to the head of the family, there were 3 other men in the office. The uncle asked his nephew who was with him. Chung explained that they were the students Feng Yun and Bai Yuntian who had accepted the task. He introduced the consultants to the boys, as well as his uncle Lin Nantian, the current head of the family. Chief Lin said thoughtfully, 1 mid-rank master and 1 primary. The consultant asked what kind of jokes these were. The head of the family hoped to see the best students or teachers. The consultant arrogantly declared that they were 3 fools. Bai lost his temper, and Chang asked his uncle and Chi Hung not to underestimate Feng Yun. This young man helped to deal with the Bloodthorn Assassins Union. Chi Heng exclaimed that this was all nonsense. Yun said with a smile that he was just lucky that time. Chi Heng decided to test the young man and invited him to the arena. The whole company moved into a large training hall. Lin family consultant Chi Heng and Feng Yun entered the arena. Han suggested that the young man begin, but Feng replied, "The elders go first." The old master waved his sword and said, "The boy asked for it." The young man blocked several of Chi's attacks. The consultant attacked, but each time without success. The heavy sword in Han's hands gave him no advantage. Putting the weapon on his shoulder, Han asked, "And that was all?" Yun waved his sword and replied, "That's it now." Blood gushed out from Chi Heng's mouth and a huge wound gaped on his chest. The head of the Lin family was shocked that the boy had defeated a top-ranking master. Heng admitted defeat. If Yun hadn't stopped, Chi would already be dead. Chang thought it was good that Feng had succeeded, otherwise he would have had to return to the director with nothing. As an apology for the unwelcoming reception, Chief Lin invited the boys to dinner. Bai told Feng, "They are quite sincere. They provided the best food and drinks." During dinner, Yun continued farming. Nothing, not even food, could stop him from farming. Feng asked the leader, "The Storm Squad only attacked the caravans of small families. Why did they attack the Lin family this time?" Nantian replied that either it was a trap or someone wanted to end them at Lin's hands. But the family had to do something. Purple Sun Base, like Starlight Base, is a third-class base and the closest to them. At one time, each base sent out dozens of masters and several grandmasters. Enormous amounts of money were spent to build a road between the 2 bases. However, the road brought not only the opportunity for cooperation, but also the temptation for robbery. Feng realized that Chang had used a big plot to create another smaller one. Yun defeated Rojan again and obtained the 3rd-level technique Butterfly Flutter. The main plot did not concern Yun. He only needed the fire attribute to become stronger. The Lin family's detachment set out for the trade route. By this time, Feng had already obtained a mid-rank sword path talent. Baya was seized with panic. He heard a 6th-rank beast prowling here. Suddenly everyone heard a terrible sound. Bai clung to Yun, begging him to save him, who snorted, trying to free himself. Chief Lin said that the squad's base is somewhere nearby, but there are many traps here. The consultants suggested luring out the opponents, but the leader refused. Chi, drawing his sword, shouted, "It's time to begin." Having cut down the tree, he shouted to the cowards that Daddy was home. The old master pushed off from the stump and rushed forward. Suddenly, right in front of him, he saw a powerful trap. Having cut it with his sword, he roared, "Did the bandits really want to stop him with a mousetrap?" Waving his sword, Chi advanced deeper into the forest. The leader said, "One man is no warrior in the field. It's time to start." Feng thought with a grin. Chi Hung seemed to have found some entertainment. Poor Bai really wanted to go home to his mother. There was a trap of huge stakes in Feng's path. Then arrows whistled, and Yun managed to pull Bai out from under the blow. While fending off the arrows, Bai said that Lin Chang had disappeared. Chief Lin suggested turning up the heat and pushing forward. Chi paved the way, smashing all obstacles with his huge sword. He shouted at the cowards to come out and fight fairly. Suddenly the forest parted and everyone saw a large fortress. Feng found it strange that the squad had built a base in the forest. Could ordinary monster hunters really do this? Chief Lin warned everyone to be careful. Groups reached here, but no one was able to take the fortress. Qi said they were all amateurs, but today was the last day of the storm squad. Nantian shouted at Qi to stop. The ground in front of Qi cracked, forming a chasm. A giant centipede jumped out of the crack. Han cursed. Was this really their pet? The monster rushed towards Qi Heng with a hiss. The old warrior clutched his sword, ready to fight the monster. But the centipede wrapped its powerful tendrils around Qi's body and wounded him. Headlin looked at his old friend with horror. They wouldn't have time to help him. Unexpectedly, Feng rushed to Qi's aid. Nantian couldn't believe it. This was a third-level butterfly flutter technique. Using one of the sword techniques, the young man killed a giant monster. Black blood gushed from the Sculopendra's severed body. Having inflicted a mortal wound on the monster, the young man returned to the others. Everyone looked at the unusual teenager with their mouths open. The head of the Lin family realized that the boy was at least of intermediate rank in the way of the sword. Nobody could figure out what this guy's attribute was. The stunned Qi cut off the dead monster's mustache that was holding him back. He asked who had just saved him, quickly forward. Everyone pointed at Feng Yun. Bowing, Qi told Feng that from today onwards, Hung was in his debt and would fulfill any request. Nantian was moved and reminded that Qi was the Lin family's consultant. Lin's detachment found itself at the gates of the fortress. Everyone was on guard, expecting an attack or traps. The dead monster guard lay behind. And then a hail of thick arrows flew from the fortress above. Lin Nantian shouted at everyone to be careful. The stream of arrows did not stop. All members of the squad put up protection against which arrows broke. Qi chuckled. Arrows made of alloy. Do they think they are bandits from the outer city? Feng realized that things weren't that simple. Suddenly everyone saw Qian hanging on a rope, tied up, begging his uncle to save him. Nantian was puzzled when Qian was captured. Yun frowned. Something was clearly wrong here. He shouted for everyone to immediately step back. Only now did the squad members notice that everything around was covered in smoke. The young man used the falling petals palm technique, but it was too late. Everyone felt dizzy. They were poisoned. The arrows contained pressurized poison. Lin Qian distracted them so that they wouldn't notice what they were inhaling. The concentration of poison has reached a high level. Lin's squad members can no longer fight. Suddenly everyone saw that Qian was free. He was not a prisoner. The head of the family and the consultants opened their mouths in surprise. Feng also didn't expect such a turn of events. The boy cut the ropes with his own sword. The next moment, he was already standing next to his exhausted former allies. Nantian asked his nephew how he could betray his family. The guy laughed. From this day on, the family would be headed by Qian and his father, and he would finally be able to breathe deeply. Does uncle know what it's like to have your family exiled to the outer city? A shadow fell across Feng's face. Traitors should not live. The young man knocked Chang down with astonishing speed and grabbed him by the throat. The guy was stunned that Yun could still fight. Feng smirked because he was strong. Fortunately, he was lucky enough to defeat Xiaomei. He gained the talent for wood along with the talent for water. Now he can neutralize poison. Since Chang jumped down without fear, it means he definitely must have an antidote. And here's the antidote. Yun decided to try the pills himself first. Turning to the others, the young man said that he had found an antidote. The smoke cleared and Feng saw that everyone was lying unconscious. I'll have to do everything myself. The young man saw a crowd of bandits coming out of the gate. The brute grinned. There was only one child left. Did the boy really think he could handle them? Feng replied that he didn't think he would be left alone. The bandit ordered the teenager to be killed. Yun ran away. The thugs, on the leader's orders, ran after the young man. The bandit sighed. That's why he doesn't like intrigue. It's too boring. Feng replied, that's right, and punched the bandit in the face. The young man struck the big guy several times. Pushing off from the ground, Yun added that he also disliked intrigue. The bandit was knocked out by the blows he received. Feng laughed. What stupid guys, they fell into their own traps. Someone was watching the battle closely from the fortress tower. The man reported to the chief that this scum was finished. Now it's the turn of the real warriors. The leader warned Hurricane, Squall, and Monsoon. Although their opponent was a boy, he participated in the destruction of the Bloodthorn. Don't underestimate him. All three answered in unison that they understood. Feng uprooted a huge tree. Using the trunk as a battering ram, the young man rushed towards the fortress gates. He concentrated, giving the tree maximum acceleration. A thick tree flew into the strong gate. Suddenly, the thick trunk shattered into pieces. The young man was surprised. Who was this? The one-eyed fighter asked if this was an assault. The bandit's fist flashed right next to Yun. The young man managed to dodge the lightning attack. Feng realized that he was facing a real fighter. Yun quickly kicked the man's chest. One-eyed clearly didn't expect such an attack from the boy. But then the next fighter jumped out of the gate and used the wind wave technique. A girl appeared behind him and delivered a wind blow to Feng. The beauty with the sword rushed forward and attacked Yun. The attack was so furious that the young man barely had time to fight back. And yet he did not intend to die at the hands of bandits. One of the opponents used the wind lunge technique. The young man flew a decent distance, but immediately returned. He skillfully dodged the blows and attacked himself. The famous bandits failed to kill him immediately. They were surprised. The boy is not bad, and he has experience. It's a pity that he will fight to the death. Feng understood that these three were battle-hardened. Their hands were stained with blood up to the elbows. Together they could kill even a master at the peak of the realm. And there is also a girl among them, Mira reminded, she warned. Well, the sooner they start, the sooner they finish. One Eye attacked Yun with hovering blades. The young man smiled, excellent skill. All three of them rushed towards Feng. This time they definitely intended to kill him. He defended himself with the tyrant's technique. The tyrant's aura protected Feng from all blades. The girl attacked using the wind blade technique. Suddenly, Yun let go of his sword, and then he realized she had attacked to knock his sword away. The young man grabbed the wind staff. The fighter laughed. Well done, guy. You even managed to catch his staff. Feng cursed. He was glued to the staff. What kind of technique is this? The enemy slammed Yun to the ground, saying that he couldn't escape now. Without a sword, he won't even cut off his own hand. The one-eyed man shouted that he would skin the boy. He used the third-level choke technique. A black, suffocating whirlwind swirled around Feng. Yun gritted his teeth. He had to do something. The girl smiled. It seemed like she was done with the boy. And suddenly the smile slid off her beautiful face. Feng was able to kill two fighters at once with the fragments of the wind staff. The girl didn't understand what had just happened. He seemed to have smashed the wind staff with his fist. He struck the staff 100 times in an instant. But where did this strength come from? He would just crush his hands. This guy is a monster. Yun raised his sword. The frightened girl fell to her knees, begging Feng to stop. She whispered that he should not come near her. If Feng kills 5 storm members, he will get all the points himself. All the mid-rank masters have been killed. Only 2 high-rank ones remain. We need to finish the task as soon as possible. The girl couldn't believe that she was still alive. Did he really mistake the commander of a regular squad for the desired target? Or did he let her go on purpose? Mirror was indignant. How could one let an enemy go? Yun replied. But she was already a girl who had surrendered. Of course he wouldn't kill her. But if she strikes him in the back, he will kill her without delay. Turning around, Feng saw that the girl had run away. This is even better. The man on the steps called out Fen Yun's name. He said with a sigh, so they underestimated him. The young man asked if Lin Chang had told the bandits about him. The swordsman replied that this was indeed the case. The fighter frowned, wondering if the boy was already attacking. Feng actually struck the enemy with the star sword technique. The interlocutor was indignant. He hadn't finished speaking yet. The young man replied that he was not interested in this chatter. Yun struck his opponent with an iron fist. The fighter raised his sword over the young man and grinned. He wasn't interested in chatter either. Feng decided to use the shadow strike technique. Whirlwind noticed that the boy had a lot of tricks. It's just a pity that they are useless. Gritting his teeth, the bandit exclaimed, "Now Feng will see his true power." Yun said, "So Whirlwind is not a swordsman." The fighter shouted for the young man to die. But this was not part of Yun's plans. He clutched the sword in his hands. Clouds of dust rose from the fortress tower. There were 2 bodies lying on the cracked floor, Feng and Whirlwind. Well, he's a tough opponent, but luckily Yun can recover, because there's still a boss waiting for him ahead. It hurts so much. Maybe I should give up the task. The boss was puzzled as to why it was taking so long. It was unlikely that the boy could defeat Whirlwind. The leader sighed. He'll have to recruit new guys again. What a hassle. Suddenly the boss heard that the dead man didn't need subordinates. At that very second the gang leader was killed. Feng was surprised. Killing with the dark attribute was much more convenient. And then Yun heard that the girl had returned. He cursed. He no longer had the strength to fight her. He needed to listen to Mirror. But the girl said that she came in peace. The young man asked how she wanted to thank him. The girl became embarrassed and blushed. She is ready to tell where the Storm Squad's treasure is. But in exchange, Feng will not tell anyone that she is alive. Yun grinned. He didn't even know her name. But if they knew what she looked like, then everything would quickly be revealed. The girl replied that only their call signs were known, everyone who knew them by sight was dead. She placed her boss's hand on the electronic lock. The doors of the safe room with the treasures opened. The unnamed card contains everything you've accumulated over several years. The money can be withdrawn at any bank, and no one will be able to track the transaction. Well, in the chest was the most valuable thing the squad had. Feng was stunned. This was a high-ranking spiritual stone. The young man returned to the forest and gave his companions the antidote. Bai kicked the tied-up Chiang and cursed. He almost died. The whole company entered the fortress of Storm's gang. Chief Lin asked Feng if it was he who had done such a thing to Whirlwind. But the young man lied and said that a strong warrior had passed by, and that wanderer took all the loot. Nantian replied, "It doesn't matter. The Storm Squad was defeated. The Lin family saved face. That's the main thing." The head of the Lin family broke the bars and jumped out. He landed near the fortress wall. All that remains is to deal with the traitor. Nantian decided that there was no point in Qian returning and spreading rumors. The uncle instantly killed his talented nephew. Bai wondered if they had received a reward for the quest. Was it okay to accept additional reward from the Lin family? Feng said he was poor and had never been paid to remain silent. Bai laughed. Great joke, Yun thought. What an idiot. Energy stone is a rare mineral that contains primordial energy. In Feng Yun's hands was a high-quality stone with a purity of over 70%. The storm troop had 100 million in their account, and together with the Lin family's payment, Yun had more than 170 million. The young man wondered if this money would be enough for his own house. Feng walked into the shopping mall. The saleswoman smiled widely, recognizing the academy student. The girl bowed and asked how she could help. The seller replied, about 500 to 600 million. But at the moment there are no villas for sale. Yun cursed mentally. The house here costs an unimaginable amount of money. He asked the girl to let him know if anything appeared. Without a house, it won't be possible to move the shelter to the inner city. Then you'll first have to give the director 1 million. Feng walked through the streets of the inner city, hoping to meet someone to copy. Mirror chuckled, dreaming that there was a warrior association at the base, where luck might smile on him. Feng wanted to visit a high-ranking base. There would definitely be talented masters there. Mirror said, "No way, Feng is too weak, farm and farm again." The Storm Squad's fortress has come to life again. A squad of unknown masked warriors arrived there. One of the guests cursed. They were late, now they don't even know who dealt with Storm's squad. The second one reassured me, it's okay. When all this was being organized, they assumed that something like this could happen one day. The unknown person jumped and broke the wall. There was a small device built into the wall. The warrior took out a memory card from there. He placed the card in his bracelet. Now they could see what had happened in the fortress. All events were recorded on a secret device. The guest cursed. This boy again. Maybe it's worth recruiting him. He's not bad, but first we need to test him again. And here is the Starlight Base Warrior Association. Feng thought it looked like an adventurer's guild from a fantasy story. The warriors, seeing the student, were surprised that the boy had come here, while Feng was looking out for the strong ones. He took notice of one of the warriors. And then the young man heard a stir in the association hall. Li Quan's lightning-fast blade walked through the hall. They say it cut off the head of a 6th-rank royal white wolf. Mirror noticed that Li Quan had talent for both the fire attribute and the sword way, so it was clear how he managed to kill the monster. Only a warrior like Li Quan, with 2 talents, could defeat such a beast. Of course, Feng Yun could have taken someone like that down too. Quan felt that someone incredibly strong had just looked at him. Who is this? A master of the highest rank? No, he is at the peak of the kingdom of masters. In the mirror space, Feng defeated the copy of Li Kun. As a reward, he received a star blade made of primordial energy ore and starstone. Satisfied, Yun decided to continue farming. 10 days later, the 100,000 points were gone, and Feng was almost in tears. Mirror calmed him down. He received the technique of the path to the stars, strengthened his talents. He increased his combat power quite well. Feng decided to take the task and check the results. It's better to take a red-ranked quest, and at the same time get materials for sale from killing the beast. Yun recovered in the heart of the snow forest. Finally, he can go to the center of the forest, who will now risk taking his prey. While putting away the trophy, Feng thought he should have taken a bigger bag. He asked Mirror if there were spatial objects in this world. She answered, "Of course there are." The young man decided to look around the forest a little more. Suddenly he heard a strange noise. There's some kind of fashionable surge of primordial energy ahead. He hid the bag, wondering if there was some kind of large-scale battle there. Feng ran to see if he could get something too. The young man climbed a tall tree above the cliff. A fierce battle was taking place in the ravine. Yun was surprised at how many masters there were. All the trees in the area were swept away by the battle. Only one remained standing. So they seemed to be fighting over that fruit on the tree. Under the tree lay the craftsman killed by competitors. This is a condensation fruit. By eating it, Feng will improve his tyrant body. Yun decided that this fruit is his. The girl reminded that there were hundreds more who thought the same. Feng decided to take advantage of the talent of darkness. Hiding his face like the assassins, he jumped down. As he descended, he activated concealment. Just in case, Yun also used evasion. While apologizing, the young man used the fighters as supports. Finally, he found himself near the treasured fruit, saying that it was his. Feng reached out and plucked the condensation fruit. The masters in the hollow froze in surprise, wondering who dared to take the fruit. They all clenched their fists in anger as they looked at the thief. The young man froze. He couldn't cope with so many masters. Mirror shouted at Yun to run away quickly, but the guy thought it was time to move on to plan B and threw the fruit away. The fruit was caught by the surprised master. Feng shouted at Mirror to copy this master, but the lucky one's fruit had already been knocked out, and the fight began again. Yun pointed first at one, then at the other, and Mirror asked him to identify which one. The fruit was constantly passing from hand to hand. Everyone was trying to get it for themselves. Feng said that we need to copy the one with the fruit, and he will knock it out of the projection. But Mirror simply did not have time to copy it. The young man cursed. He would have to take the fruit by force. He rushed like a hurricane through the crowd of warriors. Yun once again had the condensation fruit in his hands. To escape his pursuers, Feng used the path to the stars technique. The masters who gave chase were hit by the star blade. Finally, the danger was over. Feng was able to recapture the fruit. All his pursuers were dead. He put the sword behind his back and headed back into the forest. The survivors looked after the boy and said how terrifying it was. Having killed so many people, the advisor suggested that the young master return to his father. He agreed and asked for help, saying that he had sprained his leg. Feng took out his bag and put the fruit in it. Mirror advised him to find a safe place and consume the fruit, but Yun decided not to rush and first return to the city. The girl said that he could be robbed. This fruit is very expensive, but Yun's gaming experience told him otherwise. In the forest, Feng killed a 5th-rank red-banded python. Yun reasoned that since he had copying, he needed to get the maximum profit from it. He cut off the most valuable parts of the monster for sale. And suddenly he heard the menacing roar of a monster. He looked up and saw a saber-toothed tiger. He found it. The young man smiled and he almost forgot about him. The monster stopped and growled menacingly. The big man smiled. They had finally found him. The assistant noticed that the beast was much stronger than expected. The big guy agreed that they had to wait for the young master. Just at that moment, the big man's son approached with his men. The guard asked the young gentleman what had happened, and his face changed. The shaking guy whispered, "It was him." The young gentleman pointed towards the forest. Feng was flying there. The guy babbled. "This image, this height, it's definitely him, the monster that killed the people in the gorge." Feng Yun landed right in front of the saber-toothed tiger. The big guy asked his son if he knew this boy. Why is he standing in front of the tiger? Apparently he can't take a step out of fear. Since he is an acquaintance, he needs to be saved. But the boy asked his father not to provoke that young man. Feng said the tiger could count himself lucky. Li Quanfeng combined his sword talent with his own and upgraded it to the highest rank. The tiger will feel this power first. The big man was taken aback by the sword's strong intent. Everyone froze when they saw the young man rush at the huge beast. The powerful surge of energy caused many to close their eyes. The 6th-rank monster was killed with just one blow. The boy pulled his father by the hand, saying they had to run. But the old sneak said, "You idiot, you should be friends with people like that." Feng was disappointed. He didn't even hit the tiger, and it went limp, boring. Yun pulled out a tooth to exchange it for points, and wanted to sell the skin, flesh, and bones for a high price. Then Feng heard the big guy's greeting. Yun said, "The tiger is dead. They can safely approach." The man introduced himself. He was Dong Ganhua, the owner of the Divine Blade Company. Feng also introduced himself. Dun smiled, seeing the Academy's young talent in front of them. Feng asked if they needed any materials. He just happened to have some demonic beasts. When saying goodbye, Feng said that if they needed anything else, they could contact him. For the first time in his 20 years in business, Dong Ganhua felt cheated. Yun has completed the task. It's time to work on the fruit we've obtained. Bao Mao and Yang were very happy. Yun finally wrote to them. Feng invited his school friends to his dorm room. The happy boys came running, asking why Yun had called them. From his recent trip to the snowy forest, Feng brought gifts for everyone. He handed the box to Bayu, saying that it was for him. The guy was about to open the box, but Feng stopped him. He got it mixed up. It's for Yang Tian. Having given Yan the box, Feng told him to open it at home. Yang Tian thanked for the gift. Feng came to his senses. He had messed up again. This was for Mao Yunshui. The girl smiled. Perhaps she should refuse. Suddenly Yun changed his mind and decided to give everyone 10,000 points. The boys didn't understand whether Feng was stingy or generous. Mirror immediately understood Feng's plan. He gave the condensation fruit to everyone and copied them so that he could get more fruits from their copies. Yun decided to eat 2 fruits and leave the rest for now. The fruit tasted quite sour. Suddenly, an unbearable pain pierced the young man's entire body. He screamed. It felt like someone had taken a sledgehammer and smashed his skull. This feeling was repeated again and again. When Feng woke up, it was already dark. Time flew by in an instant. After what he had experienced, Yunyu no longer wanted to eat the second fruit. He got out of bed. He needed to check the result. His body has really changed a lot. The muscles were filled with unprecedented strength. Mirror said that the tyrant's body had reached perfection, and now Yun's strike was equal to 25 tons. If Feng hadn't hidden his strength, he would have already broken all records and earned a ton of points. The girl sighed. He better get dressed. Feng was full of energy and was going to the tower to break through to the highest rank. Suddenly he heard Mao Yunshui running after him, the girl calling him. She asked if he would participate in the ranking of the strongest, but Yun didn't want to attract unnecessary attention to himself. Mao insisted that the event would allow her to compete with the best students of the academy, and the winner will receive a stipend of 10,000 points daily. The young man was shocked. What a scholarship. Feng laughed. In that case, first place will definitely be his. Mao noted that it would not be easy. Those who trained outside would return to the competition. Luan Yunku, a berserker cultivating an immortal diamond body, the Yang brothers, nicknamed the Starblades, and also the incomparable Prince Feng, who took 3rd place last year. All these students are strong. They fought and cultivated. The first place is occupied by the famous swordsman. So far, there was no one stronger than him among the students. He has been training outside the academy for a long time. This warrior was able to cut through the waterfall with a blow of his sword. No one has ever managed to do something like this before. This guy has completely grasped the will of the sword. It is called the Crazy Sword of Zhou Sheng. Feng went to the cultivation room in the tower, taking the energy stone with him. With this artifact, he progressed much more efficiently. And then the stone split. Yun absorbed its energy. The young man finally broke through to the top level. After the breakthrough, he felt his sword skill had increased tenfold. He decided to try to form the sword's intent in the air. The idea worked, but the room was badly damaged, and we had to run away. The caretaker was yelling about some idiot who had destroyed the cultivation room. 3 days later, the young man left the house to test his strength. He walked into his yard and concentrated. Yun tried out the Blade of Flaming Flame technique. He mastered Li Quan's technique and was confident that first place was within his grasp. Mirror frowned. Feng didn't use the full power of the sword. The day of the competition for the academy rating has arrived. Masters from all over the area came to the competition. Yun wondered where all this talent came from. He needed to copy it. He told Mirror to copy men indiscriminately, women only with attributes. Feng saw his friends from Hailan School running towards him. Bai asked which arena Feng was in. He was in the 5th. Everyone breathed a sigh of relief. Jan said they are all in different arenas. The guys will try to hold out as long as possible. The friends bumped their fists and shouted, "Fight!" Each of the 50 arenas had 100 students. After many battles, only 2 will remain. And these 2 will clash for first place. Those who dropped out too quickly may be expelled. The annual certification process for inclusion in the ranking has begun. There is only one rule: defeat your opponent. Even if you kill someone, you will not be held responsible. This is the rule of survival in any martial arts academy. As in a cruel world, here everything is decided by force. The origin doesn't really matter here. The fighter's natural abilities don't help much either. Wealth doesn't help in battle either. The outcome of a battle is decided only by strength, such as natural selection. All of Feng's opponents were defeated, and Chi Hung was cheering for him in the stands. Headlin was lamenting that the results of the boys from his family were not very good. All hope was on the traitor Lin Chang. A girl in a hooded cloak appeared on the podium. She wondered if this was the best way for Yun to remain unnoticed, whether he should talk about this matter. Putting away his sword, Feng asked if he could be considered victorious. But it turned out that there was still one enemy left. The guy begged Yun not to hit him. He was giving in. Feng wondered where he could have seen him. He remembered that he was from the Divine Blade Company, and the guy bowed, saying that he was honored that Yun remembered him. Dong Ganhua grabbed his head. What a ram his son was. He could have become one of the 2 winners. In the first round, each of the 50 arenas must have 2 participants remaining who make it into the top 100. As expected, Feng Yun got there, but Yan didn't understand how Bai got there. In the second round, you can challenge any of the strongest 3 times. If you challenge Zhou Sheng, you can immediately take first place. However, one must not act carelessly. Everything is not that simple. And then Feng Yun's gaze fell on the scoreboard. He was challenged by Yang Chuansheng. No one could understand what was going on, why one of the best was challenging a newcomer. Sheng told Yun that he would take revenge for what he did in the tower. The fight was about to begin. Feng asked what Shen was carrying. Junior Yang barked. Enough chatter, time to draw swords. But Feng was in no hurry. He knew all the Yang brothers' tricks by heart. He shook his head and said that he would not draw his sword. Sheng was furious. This little disciple was so arrogant. Yang waved his sword and exclaimed, "He will show what the difference is between them." He aimed a shining blow at Feng. The young man stood calmly in the arena. He stared at the energy flying towards him. Suddenly, Yun blocked the blow with his bare hand. He decided it was time to test how much stronger he had become. Feng clenched his fist, and the third-level attack energy shattered into tiny pieces. Shen was beside himself. He had never seen anything like this in the academy. The spectators in the stands held their breath. Junior Yang stuttered and asked what Feng's body was made of. Yun said, now it's his turn. Clenching his fist, the young man rushed towards his opponent. Feng punched Chuansheng. There was a deafening roar, and some of the tiles in the arena shattered. When the dust cleared, everyone saw Sheng lying down. Min called his younger brother from the podium. The guys met Yun, he was great. Now he is in 19th place. The wounded Yang Chuansheng went to the medical center. As soon as the boy came to his senses, his older brother came to see him. Ming said that he had already submitted an application to summon Feng Yun. He would definitely take revenge. Xin blamed himself for not training hard enough. The boy asked his brother to be careful. It seemed that Feng was not entirely pure. Feng Yun and Yang Chuanming stood opposite each other in the arena. The spectators in the stands were actively discussing the upcoming fight. Yang Ming advised Feng Yun to surrender immediately. Feng snorted. He was actually aiming for first place. Ming promised to destroy Yun with the same technique his brother used. The swordsman was confident that Feng would not be able to stop his shining blow. The audience froze. This is a perfect third-level technique. Prince Feng invited Zhou Sheng to watch the fight, but he snorted contemptuously. Yun noticed that Ming had become stronger since he copied him. But he is not yet worthy of Feng drawing his sword. Elder Yan looked at his opponent in surprise, wondering what he was doing. A powerful stream of energy swept across the arena. Yang Ming jumped to the side, dodging the flow. The swordsman looked at the destroyed arena in confusion. Right next to him, a deep crack gaped in the floor. Suddenly Chuanming screamed, blood gushed out, and he staggered. The spectators in the stands were shocked. It was incredible. Feng used the sword aura. Li Feng's interlocutor asked, "So this is the newbie, to master such skill and power at 15 years old. It is incredible." The top 10 competition began, with Zheng Shan and Wang Chou in the arena. Zheng Shan's leg strength was unmatched, while Wang Chou was good at speed and long-range attacks. Yun was wondering whether he should copy Zheng Shan. Feng was surprised what kind of will of the legs this was. Mirror explained that by analogy with the will of the sword, there is the will of the legs. Yun decided that in battle, kick attacks could enhance his combat power. He must gain the will of his legs. Meanwhile, Shengzhen won the fight. Yun noticed. Shan is cruel, Mirror sighed. Feng should abandon the thinking of the past world as soon as possible. The young man agreed with Mirror in this world. In addition to strength, determination is also needed. The spectators became agitated, and someone entered the arena to face the number 5 contender. It turned out that the beauty Hu Qing entered the arena. Feng saw that the girl had a pill with an openwork pattern for strengthening the body, but it was useless for Yun. Mirror suggested copying the top 4 in the ranking, but no one dares to challenge the 3 strongest, so it won't be possible to copy them. These 3 are head and shoulders above the rest, especially Zhou Sheng with his overwhelming might. Feng challenged Zheng Shan, asking the elder to teach him a lesson. The guy replied with a smile. He would try. Friends actively cheered for Feng Yun, confident of his victory. Shan, clenching his fists, rushed to attack the newcomer. Feng was puzzled by what kind of technique this was. He had fought with its copy 10 times, but the original was more fierce and decisive than the copy. Zheng activated the energy point. Feng realized that he needed to dispel this point. Mirror was angry, and this is called unnoticed. But Yun was eager to try the same technique and see the result. Feng's opponent used the 3rd-level technique Tornado. There was a deafening explosion in the arena. Experts couldn't understand how this technique could have such terrifying power. The boys looked at the arena with their mouths open. And then everyone saw that the opponents had used the same technique. The spectators were puzzled as to how this was possible. Now it has become clear why there was such a powerful release of energy. Zheng Shan looked at Feng Yun with a confused expression. One of Shan's legs was shaking. He could barely stand. Zheng lowered his head and admitted that he had lost. Feng accepted his opponent's defeat with a smile. The students whispered, could it be that Shan's words were true? Feng Yun's body was much stronger. Next up is 9th place, but Feng can only challenge 3 times. Suddenly, the 3rd place winner, Zhan Xin, jumped towards Feng. The famous berserker landed in the arena behind Yun. The young man looked back and looked at the formidable master with interest. Berserker told Yun that he was a tough nut to crack, and he became curious. Feng was aiming for first place, but before facing Zhou Sheng, John offered to test his strength against him. For Feng, this was the perfect option. The director was surprised. He was an interesting guy. This was the third time the older students had challenged him. But Li Feng was confident that the berserker Yunyu could not be defeated. Jian Xin finally perfected the practice of the immortal diamond body. After looking at the characteristics, Feng realized that the berserker was truly a formidable opponent in close combat. But Yun didn't want to use the sword. He was interested in testing his physical strength. Mirror called Yun a fool and suggested that he fight the berserker copy first. Feng followed the advice and fought the copy. Jian Xin's blows were terrifyingly powerful. The kids from Highland School were actively cheering for Feng Yun. Berserker began the fight with his signature technique, Tiger Roar. Feng countered with the falling petals palm technique. Yun managed to block the attack of the strongman Xin. The experts were amazed at how strong these fighters' bodies were. Suddenly, Zhan Xin raised his hand and demanded that they stop. Berserker said that Feng Yun was a worthy opponent, so he also would not use weapons. The berserker took off his gloves and offered to begin the duel. The fight resumed. Now it was Zhan's iron fist against divine Feng. Yun forgot that almost all of his hand-to-hand combat techniques were second level. The berserker was surprised. The swordmaster was fighting him in hand-to-hand combat on equal terms, but it was time to finish with the boy. Feng felt that the second-level technique was too weak. Xin rushed to attack using Diamond Fist. Yun understood that if he constantly used the same technique, the enemy would quickly discover his weakness. One more second and the berserker will deliver his signature diamond blow. Having dodged, Feng decided that he could deal with the enemy without techniques. The so-called techniques are methods that use true energy. Therefore, any attack filled with true energy can be called a technique. Mirror thought, if you think about it, it really is so. Feng remembered that in Storm's squad, there was a fighter who could stick without any innate talent. That fight in the forest gave Feng a lot to think about. Since then, Yun constantly thought about what true energy was capable of. The young man really wanted to come up with his own way of using it. Will oppositely charged flows be attracted, and identical flows repel each other? Feng decided to change the flow of energy in his body and try to achieve constant repulsion. Having realized his plan, the young man rushed into the attack. Seeing the determined face of his opponent, the berserker was confused about what the boy was planning. Finally, their palms met. Feng's guess turned out to be correct. The opponents were thrown away from each other. Jian Xin didn't understand what just happened. He suddenly found that his arm had sunk almost up to his elbow into the arena floor. You can't pull the arm out with brute force, and it's difficult to use skills in this position. Jian cursed. Feng approached him again. Berserker figured that if he turned over, he would not only be able to use his other hand, but also dodge the blow. He remembered how he went out to fight Zhou Sheng last year, tired. Sheng then said that Jian Xin was indeed worthy of the championship, but he would never get it. After the battle with Lu Xuan, the berserker was greatly weakened, and he also allowed Sheng to see his weakness. Zhou Sheng swung his famous sword. He said the berserker uses his body as a weapon. He can't dodge. Therefore, Zhou will be able to defeat Zhan with one blow. A year ago, this blow became fatal. Xin lost. Zhan would be better off describing himself not as a weapon, but as a ram charging straight ahead. But never to deviate is the path of the berserker, which makes him himself. Xin and Yun's fists met, and energy flared up. The berserker's hand sank even deeper into the arena floor. Blood gushed out from Zhan Xin's mouth and he was seriously injured. The experts were shocked. The berserker lost to some newbie. The students jumped out of their seats. You couldn't even dream of such a thing. Zhu Sheng stood up from his seat and walked towards the arena. Prince Feng asked Sheng in bewilderment where he was going. The swordsman answered. It was his turn. Yun helped the berserker up, and he asked the young man to take first place in the list. A whisper ran through the stands that this was impossible. The teachers looked at the arena with all their eyes. Li Feng's interlocutor whispered, "This is curious." Feng Yun looked at the approaching strong opponent. This time he was challenged by the top spot. Zhou Sheng greeted Feng Yun and introduced himself. He congratulated the young man. He had reached the peak battle. The spectators clenched their fists in joy. The ultimate battle was about to begin. Feng asked in confusion, "What kind of peak battle is this?" Outraged spectators threw garbage at him. "This idiot doesn't even know about the peak battle. What is he even doing here?" Zhou Sheng explained that there are two cases called a peak battle. If someone has defeated everyone, or when the top one has challenged like now. Sheng told Yun to draw his sword and accept the challenge. Yang Tian handed his friend the sword and Feng thanked him. Feng's eyes flashed, so this was the peak battle. Mirror copied Yun's opponent into the mirror. She warned the young man that this Zhou Sheng was really strong. Feng Yun took up a fighting stance. Xu Xing took a step forward. Streams of destructive energy flashed between the opponents. Although both stood motionless, the battle began. Even from under Feng's feet, sparks and pieces of the arena flew out. The same thing happened around Zhou. The streams of their energies met, destroying the arena floor. The teachers were stunned. They hadn't even drawn their swords yet, but were using sword intent to attack. Finally, Feng Yun took out his blade. Zhou Feng did the same. The battle of intentions between two powerful swords began. Bursts of martial energy flew at the spectators. VIP guests located near the central arena were asked to urgently move to another hall. Many rushed to save themselves, but some wanted to see such a battle up close. Feng suggested finishing with the foreplay. Zhou agreed. It was time to move on to the real battle. Shen rushed forward with an explosive step. He attacked Feng with the first form of the blood sword, Cut. Yun used the star sword technique. Their blades finally crossed, and suddenly Yun felt that he was wounded. Zhou Xing's sword strike was incredibly powerful. Feng Yun flew back. Zhou chuckled. What a pity. It seemed he had overestimated Feng. Yun gritted his teeth, a gaping wound on his chest. The guys became worried. It seemed that Feng Yun had decided in vain to fight this enemy. Li Feng noticed that there seemed to be a gap between their strengths. Even though Feng Yun was only 15, could it be that he had a secret? Yun meanwhile came to his senses and used the blade of flaring flame. Shen smiled. The boy not only mastered the blade perfectly, but also the fire attribute. Not bad. Zhou struck with the fourth form of the blood sword, Blood and Fire. Feng was puzzled as to how this was possible, since Sheng had no talent for the fire attribute. A powerful explosion threw the young man away from his opponent. After landing, Feng tried to understand what had happened. He felt blood flowing from his mouth. Did he really lose? Mirror demanded that Feng admit defeat. He would definitely defeat Zhou next year. But Yun wiped away the blood and replied that he had still shown his trump card. Zhou Xing asked if Feng Yun wanted to continue. For a few seconds, the opponents looked at each other in silence. Unexpectedly, Feng replied, "Of course they continue to fight." Shen frowned. Did this boy really have something else hidden? He couldn't relax. Yun decided to fight the copy of Sheng. Mirror asked in confusion what Feng was doing. He asked Mirror to downgrade Zhou's copy to an ordinary human. The girl was stunned. Was Feng really going to fight two battles with Zhou Sheng at the same time? But this is very dangerous. Shen is a strong opponent. Yun chuckled. Multitasking was his trump card. The young man prepared to attack the renowned swordsman. Mirror exclaimed, but Yun might die this way. While fighting back, Shen puzzled over what this boy was planning. And suddenly Zhou saw that the wound on Yun's chest had already healed. The swordsman realized that Feng had a talent for the attributes of water and wood. So its trump card is the constant restoration of energy and healing of wounds. Zhou was worried that Yun might exhaust him. He needed to finish him off as soon as possible. Feng was actually trying to drag out the battle in order to obtain techniques or attributes from the replica. Sheng shouted that he would defeat Feng with one blow. Chu increased his pressure, landing blow after blow. Yun thought, what furious blows, more like a whirlpool of blades. Experts asked if this was really a fight between two teenagers. It was scary to think what they would become in a few years. The guys were trying to figure out Feng Yun's tactics, but it seemed the fight had reached a dead end. Yun also didn't understand why Zhou didn't use techniques. Shen must have already noticed Feng's energy-restoring attributes, so what was he up to? Zhou smirked. In the face of absolute strength, all of Feng's tricks were useless. Li Feng realized what move Zhou was preparing to use and wanted to stop the battle. Otherwise, Feng Yun would die. But the director of Li Feng's academy forbade him to do so. To be honest, Feng is an ordinary person without any connections. Yun felt the pressure growing stronger. It was as if he was caught in a web and could not resist, only awaiting his inevitable death. Zhou quietly told Yun that his death was inevitable. Shen struck with his sword. Qi Heng asked in confusion how this was possible. Zhu Xing has mastered the 8th form of the blood sword, so it makes sense how he can deal so many blows. Chief Lin whispered in confusion. Then Feng Yun will die. All of Zhou's attacks were aimed at transforming his true energy into a special energy that would envelop the entire arena. Special energy prevents the absorption of the energy of the attributes of water and wood. It also allows the blood sword to use it for a more powerful strike. Yun felt a powerful aura. He couldn't move. Zhou asked Feng again if he was ready to surrender. After being refused, Sheng shouted for Yun to die and struck with the 8th form of the blood sword. The arena was engulfed in smoke and flames, and the spectators froze. Mao covered her mouth in horror to keep from screaming. The director of the academy said with a sigh, "It's all over." But Li Feng whispered that Feng Yun blocked the blow. The astonished director turned back to the arena. Feng smiled. Fortunately, this wasn't the first time he had resisted this technique. The clouds of smoke cleared and everyone saw that the young man was still alive. Not long ago, Shen's mirror image dealt the same blow. In the mirror space, Yun died from this blow. Mira was urging Feng to give up. Zhou was about to use this move in the arena, but Yun firmly answered no, he could still fight. In the arena, the young man felt that Zhou was really about to use the technique. Feng quietly took out the condensation fruit and quickly absorbed it. The next second, Zhou Sheng delivered his terrible death blow. But the fruit's effect had already begun, and Feng's body was rapidly strengthening. Yun cursed, "Damn fruit, this terrible feeling again." The young man's internal pain was even stronger than his external one. He swung his sword and blocked Zhou Sheng's strike. There was a deafening explosion. The young man said to his opponent with a smile that, fortunately, this was not the first time he had resisted this technique. Feng Yun took a step forward. The shirt on his reinforced body was torn to shreds. The risk was justified under external pressure. The body instantly absorbed the fruit of condensation. Feng clenched his fist. Now it was his turn to attack. The stands started to roar, but who was Feng to withstand such a blow? Zhou Sheng frowned, wondering how this was possible. He shouted that Feng Yun had cheated. Although this is indeed a deception in some sense, Feng will not admit it. He told Zhou that it was now his turn to strike. Shen smiled. He didn't believe that the boy had a strong attacking technique. Feng asked Qi Heng to lend him his sword. Qi immediately threw his sword to the young man, shouting for him to catch it. Yun instantly caught the weapon. Taking both blades in his hands, Feng made several movements. Qi Heng recognized them. He couldn't believe that Feng really wanted to use this technique. Zhou Sheng also understood the enemy's intention. Li Feng said in confusion, "This is the will of the sword." The young man rushed into the attack. He had killed Zhou's mirror copy 8 times, and now it was time to defeat him in reality. Feng combined 2 techniques, Blade of Blazing Flames and Slashing Strike. But then Zhou Feng shouted loudly that he surrendered. The swordsman fell to his knees before the young man and repeated that he surrendered. The guy was very afraid that he would be killed by the will of the sword. The spectators in the stands opened their mouths in surprise. Experts couldn't believe this unexpected turn of events. The director said thoughtfully. He applied the perfect wills of the sword and blade. Prince Feng was at a loss. Even Zhou Sheng lost to this young man. Suddenly the prince heard someone speaking to him. Yun stood in front of him. The young man clarified that this was Prince Feng. He was his opponent in the next round. Yun waits for him in the arena all day, but since he doesn't rise, Yun decides to go down to him himself. After looking at Lu Xuan's characteristics, Feng exclaimed, "There is a wind attribute. It was not in vain that he came down to him." The frightened Lu Xuan exclaimed that he was giving up. It could be considered that Feng Yun had won. The principal ordered teacher Li to announce the winner. Feng Yun won the championship at Starlight Academy. So now Yun's daily income is 10,000 points. He also received top 1 clothing ranking. He moved from his small house to a special dormitory in the top 1 rating. Mirror snorted, lest Feng choke on his own smugness. The young man began to think that he still didn't have enough money to buy a house, so how could he earn it quickly? Mirror said that it was very profitable to produce and sell pills and weapons. As a top-ranking member, Feng will likely have no trouble meeting the Academy's alchemist and weaponsmith. Li Feng said they have a 3rd-level pill master, but why would Yun need him? The young man explained that the 2nd-level pills were no longer of any use to him. The teacher promised Feng Yun to arrange a meeting with the alchemist. Soon they headed to a special section of the academy. There were many herbs, items, and potions in the laboratory. Feng noticed that there were at least 10 strongest masters here, the weakest of them being a top-ranked master. The rest of the masters are already at the peak of their skills, and they are all here to protect this strange master. The alchemist glanced sideways at the guests he was trying to lick a small fish. The owner of the laboratory smiled kindly at Li Feng and asked what he owed for the visit of such a busy man to his humble abode. Li Feng replied that he was far from the genius of a master who had achieved 3rd-level alchemy mastery by the age of 30. The satisfied alchemist muttered, "Nothing of the sort." Feng asked Mirror if he should say that the fish was poisonous. The girl chuckled. "The master knows that." The alchemist asked Li Feng who the young man was with him. The teacher replied that this was the new top 1 in this year's ranking. Wang Ziqing leaned towards the young man curiously, whispering, "It's worth investigating." Feng was horrified. Did the alchemist really want to lick him like a fish? Li Feng introduced the alchemy master. Wang Ziqing said that Yun could call him Old Man Wang. Yun thought it was good that Old Man Wang didn't live next door to him. Wang asked, "So the young man wants a 3rd-level pill, but he doesn't have it now." But Wang liked the boy so much that he gave him 20 pills to strengthen the body and qi. Feng Yun thanked the alchemist, and he and Li Feng left. Pills Yun decided to send to the shelter. After 3 days of farming, the young man acquired some of Van's skills. In addition, an alchemical furnace appeared in front of Feng. The young man wondered if Wang Zijing's stove was too small. Mira grabbed her head, of course. No alchemist would carry a huge furnace with them all the time. Yun was eager to try out the old man's alchemical experience gained from the farm. First, you need to use wind attribute Qi to suspend the cauldron in the air. Then, using Qi with the fire attribute, you need to heat the furnace and maintain the temperature. Herbs need to be protected by wood attribute Qi so that they do not lose their beneficial properties. If Feng had studied alchemy from scratch, even after many years he would have achieved such results. And even with this experience, he almost ruined one of the simplest blood energy pills. Mirror was indignant. Feng should be happy with this too. Experience isn't everything. Practice and attentiveness are needed. After finishing his warm-up, Feng decided to move on to the second-level pills. A pleased Yun exclaimed he would save up money for a house in no time. Mirror was angry. Feng even listened to what she had just said. By evening, Yun had finished making the first batch of pills. He ended up with 200 bottles, each worth $1 million. And alchemy really turned out to be the most profitable business. The students were puzzled as to where Feng was going in such darkness. But no one asked any questions. Soon, Feng Yun found himself on the shopping street of the inner city. His attention was drawn to a store called Black Rose. The saleswoman bowed politely to the visitor. And suddenly she saw that in front of her was the leading student of the academy. She asked to wait while she called the store owner. The hostess welcomed the new leading student. It was a great honor for them. Mirror noted that it was no surprise that she had her own business. She was a warrior with talent. Feng Yun put his backpack on the counter. Taking out the bottle, he told the owner that he was selling pills. Zhang opened the bottle. What a rich aroma. Excellent quality. She was very surprised. So Feng Yun is an alchemist. Zhang Aoxu asked if the young man wanted to sell all these pills. Feng confirmed that there were energy restoration and wound healing pills here. The shop owner's eyes sparkled. She almost fainted. These are second-level pills. Yun said if they don't like it, he'll go somewhere else. Zhang immediately grabbed the backpack, saying that they would take everything. She is ready to pay 2 million for each bottle, making a total of 422 million. Feng happily agreed. He had expected less. Having received the money, the young man said goodbye and left. Zhang said that since he was a third-level alchemist, it was no wonder he was able to take the lead. The seller was very surprised that the owner bought the pills at such a high price. Feng was very pleased. A few more attempts and he would be able to save up enough money. Mirror was surprised that Feng was trying so hard for the sake of the shelter. If only his energy would be put into cultivation, the young man objected. They were his family after all. In his past life, he was so mired in the hustle and bustle that he completely forgot about his family. In this world, Xiaolan and the director reminded him of the warmth of his home. And since there is now an opportunity, Feng simply has to repay them. He saw the sign Divine Blade. It seemed like he had heard this name somewhere before. It's worth going to see. Two thugs barked that the store hadn't opened yet. But then their gaze fell on Feng Yun's clothes. They whispered, the leading student of the academy. The guards bowed and apologized. Asking him to wait, they would report his arrival to the director. Feng said, confused, that he just came to take a look. Yun decided to take a look around for now. I wonder if he can use a sword made from rank 6 demon materials. And then he saw a very high quality and expensive weapon. It was a sword made of mithril and energy ore, crafted by a mid-ranking master. It would take time to knock out Zhou Sheng's blood sword, and this one is much better. Feng heard Dong Ganhua's voice, greeting the young man. He said it was an honor for their store to host a leading student. Yun thought, the status of a leading disciple is useful. The director said that he was among the spectators at the competition. Feng can choose any sword. It will be a gift for him. Dun explained that they are known for the top craftsmen they invite. Feng thought, free is free, but one mustn't forget about decency either. He replied to the director that he could not accept such an expensive gift, especially since he could pay for it. But Dong insisted, and Feng asked him to help him with his choice. While he and the director were drinking tea, the staff prepared the swords according to Yun's requirements. The young man suggested starting to examine the weapon. The first sword to be introduced was the saber-tooth sword. Next up was the high-level cut. Mirror begged, enough, she couldn't take it anymore. Feng thanked him for the warm welcome and promised to come again. Now Yun would be able to get both swords, Mirror grumbled. If he said she was useless one more time, she would kill him on the spot. Yun went to the shopping street again with a batch of pills. On the same street, Li Feng was talking to some girl. Surprised, Li noticed Feng with a backpack. Turning around, he told Yun that he was just in time. He had something to talk about. The girl respectfully called Yun Senior Feng. The young man was embarrassed. There was no point in calling him that. He was still a newbie. The girl said goodbye to Li, saying that she would not disturb them. Li said that Purple Sun Academy invited them to the anniversary. He decided to take Feng, Zhou Sheng, Lu Xuan, and Zhan Xin. Yun was stunned. Li wants to take the best students of the academy to a regular event. The teacher smiled. Their academies had always been rivals. They would definitely want to arrange a competition between the students. Looking after the young man, Li wondered what his backpack was so full of. 10 days later, the young man brought another batch of pills. He said to the Black Rose's mistress, "Here are today's pills." Aoksu noticed that Yun looked tired. If he needed money, the store could provide an interest-free loan. Feng replied that it was okay. He hadn't slept for several nights, but he was a top-ranking master after all. Having sold the pills, the young man went to a real estate agency. After greeting me, he said that he would like to buy a house. The manager was shocked. This guy had already become a leading student. The girl offered Feng to come in. They just had a few offers, and they would give him a discount. The Yangguan restaurant in the outer city was full of people. The school children celebrated graduation. Xiaolan comforted her crying friend, and they would continue to communicate. Suddenly, the restaurant doors swung open and 2 thugs entered. One of them said he had booked the restaurant for his brother. He demanded that all school children go to the exit. The teacher suggested that the boys leave. They couldn't cope with the warriors. The group leader laughed. His brother has more authority. He will help him deal with this Feng Yushu. And then the bandit's brother noticed Xiaolan. He said that this girl was acquainted with Feng Yushu. The frightened girl said that they were mistaken. The bandits surrounded Xiaolan, intending to capture her. The boys begged the teacher to help the girl, but he said that they could not do anything. The bandit grinned. The man immediately realized who was in charge here. Suddenly Feng appeared on the threshold and said that he was in charge here. The bandit barked, "The kid probably wants to die." Xiaolan was happy that Feng Yun had come. The bandit's brother was stunned. Feng Yun became the leading student of the academy and the top one in the rankings. The young man came up and calmed the frightened Xiaolan down. The bandit cursed. "This girl knows the leading student. They are finished." Yun said that he bought a house in the inner city, and today Xiao and the children from the orphanage are moving there. As he left, Yun told the bandits that Feng Yushu was his friend. The bandit asked his younger brother if he had a plan to escape to the Purple Sun base. The happy children were frolicking in their new house in the inner city, and the director asked where Feng Yun was. It turned out that the young man sat down by a tree and fell asleep. Xiaolan patted her friend on the head and said that he tried hard. Feng continued to fight with copies of the best fighters. This time he fought a berserker. Chanshin dealt the youth a crushing blow. Fighting blue is very exhausting, but fortunately, in deserted locations he can't find a foothold under his feet. Mirror congratulated Yun. He finally obtained the practice of the immortal diamond body. Yun settled into his new home. The immortal diamond body has strengthened the tyrant's effect. The strength should now exceed 50 tons. Suddenly someone knocked on the door. Feng was surprised. Did he lock the door? Xiaolin peeked into the room and asked permission to enter. She wanted to ask Yun something. He asked what happened. The girl asked to teach her cultivation. In this world without strength, there is not even a way to protect yourself. Xiaolin had to go to a regular school because she spent most of her time earning money for the orphanage. He promised to think about how to help her in cultivation. Feng asked Mirror if there was anything suitable for Xiaolin, and the girl irritably reminded him of the openwork pattern pill. Yun asked to get it. He didn't understand why Mirror was so excited. A bottle appeared in Feng's hand. Xiao was taken aback. Where did he get it from? Could warriors really do that too? Yun told the girl to take the pill, and she would be able to cultivate tomorrow. Xiao opened her mouth and Feng put the pill in there. He gave her the practice of absorption and advised her to start with it. Yun asked her to wait until he returned from the Purple Sun base. Then he would help her. Xiao asked when he was leaving for the neighboring base. The young man replied that they were flying out tomorrow morning. The group got into the car. Zhou Sheng did not take his eyes off Feng Yun. The large Zhan Xin felt terribly uncomfortable and cramped in the car. Zhou was haunted by his loss, and the atmosphere in the car was very tense. Suddenly Li Feng cursed. He shouted to the driver to turn quickly. He obediently turned the steering wheel, sharply turning the car. Kicking up clouds of dust, they landed in the forest. The Academy's transport drove carefully under the trees. Li Feng ordered everyone to remain silent. He pressed a button, inviting everyone to look up. The most terrifying beast in the entire world was flying above them. All the passengers raised their heads in surprise. A giant Spirit Lord rank monster flew above them. The car crew silently watched the monster from ambush. Prince Feng whispered that they needed to return to base as soon as possible and report everything. Yun asked if Mira had copied the spiritual Lord Beast. Li Feng replied in a whisper. Most likely, the base found out about him before them. Feng exclaimed that he wanted to start farming the beast right now. Li Feng assumed that the beast was going to attack the base, so he didn't pay any attention to them. Mirror released a copy of the monster from the mirror. She suggested that Feng try to fight him. Li Feng told his companions that only a great master could attempt to fight this beast, and even then the outcome was uncertain. Yun asked Mirror why the monster didn't attack him right away. It is very different from other copied monsters. The girl grinned because Feng was a grain of sand to him. Li Feng said bitterly, they, ordinary warriors, were just dust to him. Oh crushes them without even noticing. Mirror said that this time Yun took a swing at the giant. After that, there was silence in the car all the way to the Purple Sun base. Nobody knew what was happening to the Starlight base and other bases. Everyone remembered how half of the Purple Light was destroyed by a sovereign-ranked beast. Finally, they reached the Purple Light checkpoint. Arriving at the hotel, Li Feng suggested staying there. Teacher Li left the students with the driver and went to check out the situation. Prince Feng heard that this base had a famous dish called Emperor Crab. Yun exclaimed, "Let's go, they have Emperor Crab for dinner." The whole company went to a seafood restaurant. Everyone ate the crab with pleasure, only Zhou Sheng grumbled. Suddenly Yun heard a suspiciously loud laugh. Looking at the uniform, Feng realized that this was a student of the Purple Sun Academy. Berserker also paid attention to these guys. Students at the local academy were discussing the fact that the guys from Starlight had finally decided to come. They heard that a student with a talent for both sword will and blade will had appeared in Starlight. Zhou Sheng gritted his teeth when he heard that all the top disciples of Starlight Academy were trash. Prince Feng tried to calm Sheng down, telling him to cool down. Yun didn't understand why Zhou Sheng was so upset, since Feng was now the leading disciple. It turned out that 3 years ago, the leading disciple of their academy had fought with Lin Wangshu of the Purple Sun, and he had been defeated and suppressed. That student was Zhou Sheng's older brother, and he had dreamed of avenging his brother for 3 years. It turns out that Feng Yun took this opportunity away from Sheng. Zhu told Yun that if he lost to the Purple Sun's top disciple, Sheng would kill him. At this time, students from the local academy approached the campaign table. The guy asked, "So they are from Starlight?" The berserker rising asked, "So what?" And suddenly the giant felt that he could not get up. Feng Yun thought, "It's interesting. Did the locals really decide to test them?" The boy quietly asked the berserker, "And he must be Zhan Xin, the colossus with feet of clay." The berserker roared, calling the stranger a beast. He dodged the blow, saying, "Not bad." The guy counterattacked Zhan Xin. The berserker gritted his teeth in pain as the enemy's blow shattered his armor. The guy chuckled. "So this is the third strongest in the Starlight Academy." The local strongman took a step forward. He said with a smile that now it was his turn. The boy swung, intending to use the tiger roar technique. The boys cried out in unison, "No, not that." And suddenly a powerful blow whistled. The attacker was confused about what it was. He crossed his arms over his chest to block the blow. The students called out to Teishuan in unison. A student at a local academy asked who dared to use a weapon. Feng said in confusion. Why did they think he used a weapon? It was a crab leg. The young man told the uninvited guests to get lost. It irritates him when he's distracted from eating. The boys lifted the wounded Teishuan and headed towards the exit. Yun suggested to go for the crab, Sheng thought. This guy is definitely a monster. The students arrived at the dormitory of the leading student of the Purple Sun Academy. Lin Wangsu was surprised. He had defeated Teishuan, the best warrior in body tempering, with a crab kick. And this Feng Yun did not disappoint him. It's just a pity that this won't help him in any way. Wangshu was already at the peak of his skill. In the evening, the students were invited to the director of the Starlight Academy. He reported that the winged wolf flew past the base, its final destination unknown. Mirror looked at Director Yan Chengqiu's characteristics and said that Feng's collection finally had someone worthy. Yun exclaimed, "He is also a master of weapons. We must definitely try to create something." The director told everyone to have a good rest and not to tarnish the honor of the academy tomorrow. And if Feng Yun loses tomorrow, the director promised to deduct his points and send him to a regular dormitory. Feng's face lengthened. At the first opportunity, Feng Yun began farming the director. Even though they lowered Yan Chengqiu's cultivation, it didn't make things any easier. The academy director attacked with streams of fire. Suddenly the young man was surprised. Yan directed a stream of fire at the water. Soon the young man realized that the water instantly boiled. Yan created a steam curtain to attack, and the steam also burned. Indeed, the director's copy soon attacked, but to his surprise, there was no one there. At this time, Feng Yun attacked Chunqiu from behind. The enemy screamed in horror. He was killed. Feng sighed. Fortunately, he had the talent of darkness, and if it weren't for this steam curtain, it's unlikely that this sneak attack would have worked. Mirror congratulated Yun on his first victory. He received the third-level technique Golden Strike Split. The next day, the company went to the Purple Sun Academy's 50th anniversary. Berserker noticed that their building was larger. Prince Feng said that before the beast's attack, this base was level 2. For the past 3 years, Purple Sun's leading disciple has been Lin Wangshu, who is said to have mastered the will of the sword. Zhou Sheng warned Yun that it would be difficult to defeat Wangshu. Red-haired beauty Xu Hong greeted the guests. Jianxin smiled. This is class, his format. Mirror advised Yun not to even approach Hong. She was a head taller than him. The beauty exclaimed, "There is no better start to a holiday than a competition between the best students." Prince Feng was surprised why they immediately moved on to the final battle. Feng Yun said, "Great, the sooner we start, the sooner we finish." The director promised that if Yun won, he would give him a spatial ring. Now Feng has a lot more motivation. Yan explained that the fate of the entire base depended on the outcome of the battle. Many people will be watching the competition, including the envoy of the Zhanghai base. Lin Wangsu came out to meet Feng. Yun was surprised. Even the fate of the base depended on this. He had to win. After looking at the enemy's characteristics, Feng snorted, since he could only use half of his sword will. This guy is definitely much stronger than Zhou Sheng. Suddenly Lin Wangshu disappeared. Yun immediately took up his swords, expecting an attack. The guy appeared right in front of the young man and said hello. Feng exhaled. He is fast. Wangshu suggested that Yun transfer to them. He saw what a beauty their teacher was. Feng laughed. Zhou Sheng was infuriated by this proposal and was eager to fight Wangshu. Yun replied sheepishly that Hong was taller than him. Lin Wangsu grumbled that Feng was a cracker. The young man could not understand what was going on. Lin frowned and suggested that the competition begin. Wangshu attacked Feng Yun with lightning speed. He blocked the blow with 2 swords. The local students were surprised at how powerful the will of the sword was, and the will of the blade. Xu Hong smiled, simultaneously wielding the will of the blade and the will of the sword, a curious boy. Feng Yun repelled the enemy's attacks. Lin Wangsu's sword will is completely different from his and Zhou Sheng's. More precisely, the style of mastery is different, his is more skillful. But Wangshu, like them, uses a boost at the moment of impact. Feng realized that his mastery of the sword's will was no match for Lin Wangshu's. It's like you're being attacked by countless sword-wielding hands, leaving no chance to dodge. Lin not only has amazing talent, but also brilliant technique, honed through numerous training sessions. But even so, Lin Wangshu is not Feng Yun's opponent. The young man rushed towards his opponent. Feng Zal, his body is much stronger. He just needs to take the blow, and then he can counterattack. Lin Wangsu's attack was shattered by Feng's strong body. He pushed off the ground and rushed to attack. The Purple Sun's top disciple looked at the approaching enemy. Wangsu frowned. This youth is really strong. Suddenly Lin raised his hand and shouted for Yun to stop. Feng froze in surprise. Unexpectedly, Wangshu admitted defeat. Yun was shocked. They hadn't even started fighting seriously. Lin said that Feng had a strong body. If the battle continued, they would both be injured. Yun probably understood this too. This is not a real battlefield. On the way here, Yun saw what Lin was talking about. Director Yan praised Feng Yun, and Shu scolded Ling Wansu. Looking at the enraged Xu Hong, the director and Feng thought, what a terrifying woman. Shu thought with a smile, Wangshu has finally grown up. 10 years ago, a winged wolf attacked the Purple Sun base. After the battle, the survivors buried the fallen heroes. Among the dead were the parents of 8-year-old Wansu. Xu Hong told him that his parents sacrificed themselves to take away the winged wolf and save the city. But the boy couldn't believe it. He screamed that they weren't his parents. He couldn't recognize them. The bodies were mutilated beyond recognition. But Wangshu hit Hong and shouted that she was lying. He ran away, screaming that it wasn't them. Xu Hong sighed heavily. And now she understood that victory in the arena was not the goal of Lin Wangshu's grueling training. Xu Hong hoped that they could buy enough time for the next generation before the next disaster. Enough time for a new great master to emerge among them. In the evening, a pleased Yan congratulated the boys on their victory. Year after year, their academy lost. But this year they finally wiped the floor with the Purple Sun. He gave Feng Yun the spatial ring as he promised. This was the grand prize set by the head of the Purple Sun base. Feng was pleased. It was a convenient thing, although many demonic beasts couldn't fit in there. The guys were unhappy that Yan presented the main prize of someone else's base as if it was his own. Li Feng suggested that the leader reward Feng Yun with an additional reward. Yan noticed that Yun's blade was low-ranked, and when they returned home, he would hand him a mid-ranked treasure. And in the inner city of Starlight, other events were taking place. 2 unknown individuals visited the former secret base of the Bloodthorn. They reported to the boss that the secret base had indeed been destroyed. This is definitely the work of the city's law enforcement agencies. The boss asked what their agent in the authorities said. The bandit reported that a student from the Starlight Academy was with the law enforcement officers, and that he destroyed the base. And then that student won the championship and bought a house in the inner city. The boss broke the bone in anger. He exclaimed, "This is excellent. Bloodthorn always pays its dues. It's worth dropping in on him in the evening to see the hero." At the hotel, Feng was actively farming Lin Wangshu. He tensed, expecting the enemy to approach. The destroyer's sword flashed in Yun's right hand. In the left was Li Quan's Starblade. The young man cut through the copy of Wangshu with one blow. Mirror congratulated Feng. He received half of the sword's will. Yun was indignant. Mirror was cheating. Lin had some special techniques. The young man cursed. How could Lin admit defeat without fighting at full strength? Feng emerged from the mirror space. It is not safe to combine the will of the sword. Here it is better to cultivate it. I wonder how Xiaolan is cultivating. I can't wait to go home. Dusk fell on the inner city of Starlight. The boss whispered, "Don't give yourself away. Don't let anyone go." The leader of the Bloodthorn group was seething with anger. He knocked loudly on the front door. The director of the shelter asked who was there, but it seemed like there was no one there. The Bloodthorn boss raised his sword over the woman, but suddenly he felt a blade on his neck. The director grumbled, "The children are being naughty again," and went into the house. The leader of the Bloodthorn asked the girl who she was. She replied, "It doesn't matter. Feng Yun is not here." The boss asked why he should believe her. The girl chuckled. She would call the police, and they would definitely not wait for Feng. The boss barked at his men that they were leaving. The girl watched the killers. This time she was able to detain them. But next time, Feng Yun will have to act on his own. The next day, the campaign returned to Starlight. Li Feng ordered everyone to rest and then continue cultivating. Yun sighed contentedly. He was finally home. He looked at Xiaolan in surprise. The young man was amazed. It can't be. She advanced so quickly to the mid-level rank of pre-master. Mira reassured Feng that he didn't have the materials that Xiaolan had. Yun asked if she had a system better than Mira. Xiaolan asked Feng Yun what was wrong with him, if he was okay. Feng decided that Xiao had become taller than him, and the enraged Mira threatened to hit him. Lan dragged Yun into the kitchen, and she fried his favorite meat. Suddenly Feng saw a familiar silhouette. A girl from Storm's squad stood in the doorway. She put a finger to her lips warningly. Feng was surprised why she appeared here. It was already night outside. Yun quietly went out into the yard. He told the girl to come out and asked what she wanted. She appeared unnoticed and said that she wanted to warn him. Last night, 5 assassins from the Bloodthorn came here for his soul. Yun thanked her for driving them away. The girl knew that the assassins had decided to wait until Feng left the inner city and kill him. Don't underestimate them. There is a man among them who is at the limit of his skill. Feng smiled. Just in time, he had a surprise for them. Yun happily went to the tower to cultivate. Thanks to the scholarship, he was able to cultivate on the 9th floor. Feng has already become strong enough, but will he have enough strength to defend himself? We need to focus on cultivation. Feng Yun finally broke through to the peak of his skill. Suddenly everyone noticed that the tower of pure energy began to shake. The students were puzzled as to whether it was an earthquake. Feng left the tower. "That's all for today. I need to go to Yan for the sword." The boys said that the energy in the tower was depleted, and the teachers rushed to the 9th floor to the main concentration seal. Feng cursed and rushed away. He needed to lie low. Entering the director, Feng bowed and said that he had come for a mid-rank sword. Mirror asked. Feng seemed to want to lie low. Yan had no time to forge weapons, so he gave Yun his famous sword scar. Feng thanked the director. "Excellent sword." Mirror determined that the sword was made from a rare spiritual ore with a metal attribute. Director Yan frowned. If Feng doesn't like the sword, he can return it. Feng has finished with the small matters. It's time to move on to the main thing. The remains of the Bloodthorn must be destroyed. The girl managed to negotiate with Qi Heng for help. She hoped that Feng Yun would be able to deal with the Bloodthorn assassins. Suddenly, people in masks appeared next to her. She didn't expect to see them here. Turning around, the girl realized that she was surrounded. She asked, "They weren't planning on making a fuss right here, were they?" The masks warned Storm that the organization never lets traitors go. She objected. It was Storm who had joined them to the organization. The squad no longer existed, and she didn't want to get involved with the organization. Clenching his fist, the man said, "This is betrayal." Feng walked through the forest. Nothing had been heard from Buri since lunch. However, Qi Heng and 2 friends arrived to guard his house. Using the mirror, Yun discovered 4 killers. However, the location of the leader is still unknown, so we must continue to pretend. Suddenly, the young man saw a strange and beautiful phenomenon. He stopped and looked around. Huge snowflakes were swirling around him. Was it really snowing? So that's why this forest is called snowy. Mirror objected. These are not snowflakes, but the seeds of snow trees. How could such a beautiful place appear after the apocalypse? Feng hoped that someday he could bring the children from the orphanage here so they could see this. And then the leader of the Bloodthorn assassins appeared. A flock of winged mice flew after him. A giant crocodile raised its head from the thicket. A flock of winged bloodsuckers immediately pounced on the monster. A few minutes later, the crocodile was dead, and the pack flew on. Feng ran through the forest, the 4 assassins following him. Suddenly, Yun saw that they were gone. Had they really retreated? The young man decided to climb a tree. Apparently, there is a trap waiting for him ahead. It might be some kind of colossal beast. Suddenly, a frightened horned horse ran out of the thicket. Feng Yun was surprised. This is a herbivore. The young man took off to look around. He settled on the branch of a large tree, and various animals were running around underneath him. Feng couldn't understand what they were running from. Mirror commanded Feng Yun to quickly go upstairs. The young man obediently pushed off from the branch. He soared high above the snowy forest. And then the young man saw something that looked like black smoke. Mirror assumed that it was a swarm of demonic creatures, and that she needed to descend carefully. Yun was confident that with the ability to fly, he had nothing to fear. Mirror has discovered the leader of the Bloodthorn assassins. The young man flexed his fists, preparing to greet the enemy. The girl shouted for Yun to forget about him and quickly run out of the forest. A flock of flying bloodsuckers flies after the leader. The young man won't be able to cope with them. There are too many of them. Feng was stunned. This crazy guy decided to bring a pack of bloodsuckers with him to deal with the enemy. Mirror warned, the mouse leader is a 9-rank monster. Feng Yun pushed off from the tree and rushed forward. If a bandit can escape, then a young man can do it too. Suddenly Feng felt that he was wounded. The gang leader chuckled. The kid thought he could escape. Yun was puzzled as to whether this suicide bomber really wanted to fight right here, despite the pack of bloodsuckers. The bandit launched a hail of weapons after the young man. The guy swore, what a bastard. How many hidden weapons he had there, he must have bought them in bulk. Mirror was angry. Even on the verge of death, Feng joked that if the bandit detained him, he would be finished. Yun asked what if we kill their leader, the Mouse King. The girl advised not to count on luck. Feng would not even be able to get close to him through the entire flock. The Bloodthorn chieftain continuously attacked Feng Yun. It seemed the bandit wasn't afraid of the monsters, and tried to detain the guy. The young man stopped. This could not continue. He had to accept the fight. Mirror was terrified of how to fight in such a situation. Yun asked to find the Mouse King. This is the only chance to survive. The girl realized that Feng was up to something. He's already entered the fight. Enough chatter. Yun mentally asked Mirror where the Mouse King was. Feng still hadn't managed to fuse Lin Wangshu's sword will, and there might not be another chance. The youth shouted, the two swords fusing with their wills. Now it is time to apply the renewed will of the sword. The furious, blazing will of the sword rose above the forest. The bandit looked at the approaching attack in horror. Feng Yun shouted, get out, and the gang leader fell from the impact. Mirror found the Mouse King. Yun ordered the sword to execute the monster. Following the monster, the leader of the Bloodthorn also died. The young man stood next to the dead bandit and the dismembered monster. The power of the sword's single will is simply astounding. Even a mid-rank treasure could not withstand its power. Now all that remains is to throw the brand new sword into the spatial ring. Feng put away the broken weapon and repaired his clothes. It's good to know that at least the ring continues to serve well. He freed his sword from its chains. This means he will continue to use the Sword of Destruction and the Starblade. Who would have thought that Yun would be able to take down such a huge creature? And then Feng saw 4 assassins circling nearby. The young man quickly dealt with the enemies. It's a pity that no one saw it. Suddenly Feng heard applause and shouts of bravo. The masked man said, kill 4 silver-ranked assassins in the blink of an eye. Bravo. There's also the corpse of a 9th-rank beast here. Could it be that a warrior of mentor rank was at work here? 2 masked men jumped from the tree towards the young man. One of them told Feng that he had talent. He can take one material from the corpse of the Mouse King. Mirror copied Feng's interlocutor. He is strong and has the necessary attributes. The second girl also copied. He turned out to have talent and technique with the attribute of space. Mirror advised against engaging them in battle, but Feng had no intention of doing so. He took the Mouse King's tooth and was about to leave, but Hiwei stopped him. The young man asked if they had changed their minds. Tang Wenhu invited Feng to join their truth organization. Feng replied that he would think about it and find out more about them. The masked men gave him time and promised that with them, no gangs would be scary to him. Yun repeated that he would think it over carefully. He shouldered the fang and said goodbye to the masks. Hiwei grumbled. The boy was making fun of them, but his companion calmed him down. Feng knew that the Bloodthorn was a problem. The worst thing was that they threatened Xiaolan's safety. It's probably worth visiting the law enforcement agencies. Yun went to headquarters and met with the already familiar detachment. Tao admitted that Bloodthorn's return to the city was their mistake and promised to strengthen the patrol at Feng Yun's house. Sun Xiaomei thanked the young man for the expensive gifts. From headquarters, Feng went home. Opening the doors, he shouted that he was back. Feng Yun was overjoyed. Everyone is here. Xiaolan, Storm, the director. Behind the director stood Qi Heng and his friends. The young man thanked everyone for protecting his family and asked to accept gifts. The director reminded them that Miss Tan Yue had guarded them all night, and that she needed to be thanked too. Feng told Bura that he had come across 2 members of the Truth Society in the forest today. They were wearing rat masks, and on Storm's squad map there was a hieroglyph for a rat. Storm confirmed that the squad was their unit. Feng smiled, so he didn't hastily accept their invitation. They said he had talent. The Storm frowned. Under no circumstances should you join them. Feng asked to explain why, but Tanya flared up. No means no. The girl added, the truth only hurts Yun. The young man shouted for her to stop. But the storm has already disappeared. Feng Yun heard Xiaolan calling him. Turning around, he asked the girl what she wanted. Xiaolan was confused. She wanted to know what kind of relationship Yun had with Miss Tan Yue. But she immediately waved her hands, saying that she didn't mind Yun communicating with others. So let's move on. Feng didn't understand what she was talking about. Mirror sighed. Yun was a virgin and would remain one. The youth continued to fight with the copy of Yan Chen-Q. The director is able to summon streams of flame. He fought the copy of the director several dozen times. And the dam system chose the most convenient location for him, a volcano. But Feng doesn't have any water attribute technicians above level 3. Maybe I could do it like Zhou Feng did, fighting fire with fire. But that trick would only work if there was a small gap in strength. A Yun is nowhere near Yan Chen-Q's fire skills. All that remains is to use the Mad Blade technique. Success will depend on speed. Feng used the 9th form of the Mad Blade Thorn. The copy was killed. The young man cursed. He had used up all his energy. Mirror said that in a real fight, Yun would already be dead. The girl congratulated him on gaining experience as a mid-rank weapon crafting master. Feng thought, he already has so many talents that he will soon be sent for experiments. To avoid being spotted, Yun decided to forge weapons in the basement of the house. The basement is large and well soundproofed. I need to ask the director and Xiaolan to buy the necessary equipment. The girl was upset. She wanted to turn the basement into a playroom. But, as the director says, this house belongs to Yun. 3 days later, the gunsmith's workshop was ready. Feng was very pleased. Only a mid-ranked pre-master could open the doors. Yun noted to himself that Xiaolan was growing quickly. Feng decided to start by creating a low-ranking item. The first step is the same as in alchemy. Having combined the raw materials, the young man took the blank out of the oven. The forge hammer must contain some fire energy. The art of forging in this world is different from the previous world of Feng. The forging process is not only about purifying the metal, but also about creating a structure to infuse the weapon with primordial energy. Yun first used a low-rank forging technique. The young man sighed wearily. The low-rank copper sword finished. Looking at the result, Feng thought, how terrible. He threw down his sword. No one will use it in battle. Now it's time to try creating a mid-tier treasure. Taking the hammer, Feng cheerfully said, let's go. He used the mid-rank forging technique, Wild Rhythm. The young man thought that maybe he should go back to school and study forging again. Mirror chuckled. Yun just has the wrong hands. Taking the tool, Feng said, it's not over yet. Feng felt the cold as he raised the sword and named it Blizzard. Mirror snorted. If she had been the sword, she would have self-destructed. Now Yun wanted to try to create a top-tier treasure. The girl reminded that Yan only had mid-rank experience. But Feng decided to try, and the material would be the tooth of the king of bloodsuckers. The little mirror sighed. What low standards. A day later, the young man came out of his gunsmith's workshop. Behind his back, a new sword made from a monster's tooth gleamed. Feng was eager to try out the weapon. Soon he entered the main gate of the outer city. Finding himself in the forest, Feng exclaimed, and indeed, it turned out to be an excellent sword. He approached the body of a crocodile killed by bats. In the thicket, the young man fought with a monstrous snake. He slashed at the monster with his new sword. It turned out that this sword was a perfect match for the Mouse King's bloody talent. It instantly sucks out all the blood from a beast below rank 6. Feng decided to name it the Bloody Sword. It was good that Feng had not met the king earlier, otherwise the young man would have met death. Mirror agreed. The sword was good, but it was useless against warriors above the peak of mastery. At most, it could weaken them slightly. Feng Yun went to the Pure Energy Tower again. With the new sword, he hoped to defeat those two. Fortunately, he managed to copy them. Judging by the high technologies, the society has serious resources. Feng asked why they didn't have lower techniques and skills. Mirror smiled. It was her effort. The young man objected. Xiaolan could have used the low-ranking drop. The little mirror snorted. It will be possible to buy it. Yun asked why Mirror was climbing again. He decided to knock out Tang Wenhu with one blow. The young man was surprised why he didn't hit it. He felt it. It turns out that Feng only cut the mask, and then Yun noticed that the enemy was attacking. So this is the talent for the attribute of space. The fighter used the spatial wave fist technique. The young man realized he couldn't avoid it. Then you need to hit back. Feng used 2 sword and blade techniques at once. He cursed, and his opponent dodged again. A second later, Tan had already attacked Yun, and he gasped and froze. Mirror laughed that he was hatching. The battle was going on, Feng whispered. So Ta Wenhu is a girl. Mirror laughed. Bingo. Feng doesn't fight with girls. He didn't even touch Xu Hong. Feng smiled. Well, there's no point in making him out to be some kind of nerd. Once Yun got used to the spatial attacks, defeating Tang was easy. The mirror congratulated Feng on his talent for the space attribute. At this time, Li Feng was talking to Yan about why the Zhanghai base was recruiting disciples now. This time, Feng Yun's fight was being watched by the envoy of Zhanghai, and if Feng Yun entered the battle hall, it would be to their advantage. And they cannot disobey the orders of a senior base rank. The director reminded Li Feng that this was something he should not talk about. Feng Yun was still cultivating in the tower. After learning about this, Li Feng decided to find that master in the outer city for now. Feng, meanwhile, was able to defeat the copy of He Wei. Mirror congratulated him on receiving a portion of the sword's will and a new technique. Yun decided to continue. He had not yet obtained the talent for the metal attribute. Feng constantly felt like he was not getting anything done. The little mirror advised me to be patient. The director went to the cultivation tower. He already knew that Li Feng had gone to look for the old man, but would he be able to delay the Zhanghai base's order? The students near the tower were shouting. It started again. The boys told the chief to look up. Yan was stunned. The energies of all attributes swirled around the tower. Feng Yun headed towards the exit. Even though he spent all his points on the tower, he still couldn't break through to the ultimate master level. Suddenly he heard the director. Yan said that his cultivation speed was amazing. Feng just absorbed all the energy from the tower. The young man apologized sheepishly. The director replied that it wasn't worth it. It meant that Feng was already feeling a bit cramped here. Zhanghai base has announced a recruitment drive, and Yun is the only candidate. This means he will be leaving soon. We need to earn money for the shelter. Mirror was unhappy, but Feng said that earning money for the family was not only a man's duty, but also an honor. He went back to the Black Rose store, and the owner bought several batches of pills from him. He also offered his products to Dong Ganhua. The director of the weapons store bought several swords from Feng. The young man was very tired but happy. The money earned will be enough to maintain the shelter and cultivate Xiaolan. Mirror suggested that Feng focus on cultivation himself. To that husband, the tower is not the only way to cultivate. Previously, Feng didn't have enough strength for this method. Yun went to a distant area where spirit ore could be found. No one below the rank of ultimate mastery would dare to venture into such a place. Feng, following Mirror's instructions, began searching for spiritual ore. Spiritual currents must show deposits. True, there is a risk that spiritual waves will attract outsiders. Feng formed a thin spiritual thread to search for the deposit. The animals of the forest immediately felt the spiritual thread. Feng's energy flow set out to search for spiritual ore. Suddenly, the young man felt movement next to him. It turned out that a kitten jumped right towards him. The young man imagined how happy he would be to have Xiaolan's pet. But Mirror snorted with displeasure. Feng was rejoicing too soon. This kitten is a 7th rank beast and will become stronger over time. Yun decided to treat the kitten with a huge chicken leg. Mirror was shocked. Was Feng really going to kidnap a child? The young man looked at the kitten and thought that he would grow up, become a scary tiger and give Feng a ride. I wonder where the tiger cub's parents are. Mirror claimed that Feng looked like a pedophile. For now, he decided to take the tiger cub and continue searching for deposits. All the energy of the metal attribute flows into the valley, which means there must be a deposit below. Suddenly, Feng noticed that the tiger cub was very worried. He put the kitten down on the ground and offered him to wait here. If he didn't run away, he would get another chicken leg. But the tiger cub grabbed Feng by the clothes with his teeth. The young man realized that the little animal wanted to go with him. Then forward, Yun jumped down with the kitten on his shoulder. There was very dense energy in the gorge. It could even be seen with the naked eye. With a meow, the kitten jumped off Feng's shoulder and ran forward. The young man was surprised. Could his house really be here? It wasn't a trap. Suddenly, the tiger cub stopped abruptly and growled. Feng understood why. A tigress killed by hunters lay ahead. One of the hunters exclaimed, "The boy found their baby." Mirror warned, "These 4 are at the level of the sky." Feng Yun realized that by baby the hunters meant a tiger cub. Their leader told Feng to give the beast to them. The tiger cub bared his teeth and growled at his mother's killer. Feng wondered what the best course of action would be. Suddenly the tigress opened her eyes. A commotion ensued. The hunter swore in surprise and jumped back. The tigress growled threateningly. Feng realized this was his chance. He grabbed the tiger cub and ran. The elder told the others that he would sort this out himself. The 3 of them had to catch up with the boy and take the tiger cub. The hunters rushed after Feng. The tigress, seeing this, turned to her pursuers. The beast rushed to save its child with a roar. But the elder hunter ordered the tigress to stand. Streams of powerful energy wrapped around her enormous body like fetters. Energy ropes engulfed the swords protruding from the beast's body. The hunter pulled the energy threads. At that very moment, all the swords flew out of the body. The tigress screamed piercingly, and blood gushed from her numerous wounds. She fell to the ground, exhausted. The hunter approached the beast's face and said that she could resist as much as she wanted, but she still wouldn't last long. The master gathered his swords into a spatial ring. Feng figured he could handle these three, but he wasn't sure about the fourth one. All that remains is to abandon the tiger cub, use the dark attribute, and escape. He looked into the kitten's tear-filled eyes. Feng flared up that he was looking at him like that. They also wanted to make a riding animal out of him. And yet the young man decided to give the hunters a fight. He hit them with his spatial fist. The hunters were shocked. A fourth-level attribute technique at such a young age. Could he be from a first-level base? Feng chuckled. Who knows? But he doesn't like it when people steal from him. And with these words he killed one of his pursuers. The rest stopped. It was difficult to fight with the master of the space attribute. Yun hoped this would delay them. He could only use this attack once a day. Suddenly the young man saw that blades were pursuing him. Feng immediately used spatial movement. But despite the movement, the elder hunter was able to wound Feng. And then the young man saw that the hunter's blades had caught up with him. Feng cursed. He had already spent a lot of energy. He wouldn't be able to move any further. But suddenly a tigress appeared from somewhere and covered Feng with her body, taking the blow of the blades on herself. The senior hunter cursed how the tigress could still be alive. The tigress, studded with blades, fell to the ground, and Yun realized that he was saved. The tiger cub jumped out of the arms and walked towards the dying animal. He meowed pitifully, and then Feng realized it was his mother. The tigress hit the kitten with her paw, throwing it away from her. The tiger cub flew away and ended up in Feng Yun's hands. She roared menacingly and hit the young man with her strong tail. Holding the kitten close to him, Feng flew into some narrow space. Opening his eyes, he realized that the tigress had thrown them into the cave. She herself entered into her last battle with the human hunters. The kitten was eager to get to its mother, but Feng stopped it, saying that she did it for them. The tiger cub sank its teeth into the young man's hand. Feng hugged him, saying that he couldn't let him go. He wouldn't let the tigress's sacrifice be in vain. Suddenly the tiger cub felt tears dripping down his face. Feng told the tiger cub that he would absorb the energy of this place, then they would leave it. But the young man would avenge the tigress. The kitten looked at the crying man in surprise. Night fell in the gorge. Feng didn't understand why he couldn't hold back his tears. Maybe it was because of his mother in his past world, or because he was an orphan in this world. But now is not the time to think about this. We need to concentrate on cultivation. The chief hunter was perplexed. This creature had become even more ferocious. The girl noticed that the flow of energy in the valley had changed. The elder agreed that there was indeed something wrong with the energy flow. Some people absorb the valley's energy incredibly quickly. This guy who took the tiger cub, his energy absorption rate is just abnormal. The elder sent 2 assistants to take him alive to find out the secret. If they obtain this technique, they will quickly break through to the rank of mentor. The tigress rushed after the 2 hunters. The elder one went berserk. This creature turns its back on him again. But the tigress instantly grabbed the girl hunter by the head. The tigress felt herself weakening, but continued to hold her victim in her teeth. The hunter jumped up, swinging his sword at the beast. Suddenly the tigress threw the body of her girlfriend at the attacker. There was a bright flash. The hunter woke up on the ground, with his girlfriend's body lying next to him. And then he saw that the tigress was coming towards him. He begged the chief to save him. Directing the blades at the beast, Li Shun muttered. He didn't expect there to be so many losses this time. Swords flew at the wounded tigress. The hunter asked Li Shun and decided to kill him. He grinned, but why would he need such a coward? He kicked the dead animal and it finally died. Now it's time to check on that guy and the cub. Suddenly Li Shun saw a huge cutting stream. The hunter managed to jump aside to save himself. The stream swept away the top of the cliff. Shun didn't understand what this was. Could this really be some kind of mentor's cave? That's nonsense. Li Shun heard the mocking voice, and he quickly realized that it was no wonder he was in the sky. The hunter ran away. Feng asked what about the fight. He suddenly appeared in front of Li Shun, reminding him that he was just a pitiful boy of extreme skill. The hunter threw swords from the spatial ring at Feng. But the guy disappeared. Li Shun sent swords flying around. Laughter was heard very close by, and the hunter, clenching his teeth, looked around. Feng grabbed him by the throat and asked if he was looking for him. Li Shun whispered. The guy wouldn't take revenge for the demon. He wouldn't kill him because of some beast. Feng Yun chuckled. In the wasteland, man is a wolf to man. He stabbed Jun with a bloody sword, and his body quickly turned into a mummy. Although the new sword was destroyed under the doubled force of the sword's will, there are enough swords here. We need to put them in the ring, and then we'll figure it out. Feng saw the tiger cub running out of the cave. He ran as fast as he could towards his mother's body. The young man ran after him, trying to stop him. The kitten stopped right at the face of the one who fought for him to the end. He rubbed himself against his mother's muzzle and began to purr. The tiger cub lay down next to the dead body and closed his eyes. Feng took it in his hands and, apologizing, said that it was time for them to go. Yun said, Someday we will all meet our parents. At that moment he was attacked by the last surviving hunter. The man swung his sword and barked at the boy to die. Feng glanced sideways at the attacker. Suddenly the hunter screamed and was pierced by a sword. Yun exclaimed, "Lin Wangshu." The guy was surprised. All this gratitude after he saved Feng. Yun offered to divide the treasures of the dead warriors. Also, the valley is full of energy. There is no better place for cultivation. Wangshu frowned and looked at the tigress and cub. He agreed with Yun's proposal. Feng was surprised. Lin was not interested in the tigress's corpse. The boys began cultivating. Feng noticed the astonishing speed of Wangshu's energy absorption. Lin suggested leaving here. He needed to find the Lingji longevity mushroom. If Feng helped him, he would not lay claim to the tiger. Feng agreed, but Lin would have to help bury the tigress. But Wangshu refused. His parents were killed by a monster, so he exterminates them all indiscriminately. Feng was surprised at how strong the killing aura was. Yun told the tiger cub that his mother was now resting here, and that when he grew up, he would be able to visit her. Lin Wangshu snorted in disdain. The boys flew over the valley in search of a mushroom. Suddenly, Lin Wangshu frowned. Something was happening in their camp. Feng Yun realized that the Crimson Sun's camp was under attack. The guy immediately rushed to his own people. Feng followed him with the tiger cub on his shoulder. Wangshu frowned. It seemed like there was a fight going on near their tents. He and Yun saw a swirl of energy, but nothing else was visible. Lin was breathing heavily. He was sure his friends were being attacked by monsters. Feng, without thinking twice, rushed forward. Wangshu smiled. Let's see what the boy is capable of. Approaching the camp, Lin cursed. It looks like these are not animals. A blow whistled in front of Shu Hong, causing the academy principal to fall to the ground. The man said to the wounded Shu with a grin. She was so proud, but now she has been stagnant for 10 years. It's a shame. But such a beauty will undoubtedly be warmly welcomed at the Nanjiang base. Lin Wangshu rushed to the wounded head of the academy. Yu shouted for Wangshu to run, this warrior in the sky. But the guy objected. He could handle the warrior of the sky. She reminded Lin of his promise to avenge his parents. He should not get involved in senseless battles. But Shu Hong raised Wangshu and was like a family member to him. And besides, he wasn't a mad genius like Feng Yun, so Ling would defeat him. Mirror copied Dai Tianan. Perhaps he was one of the warriors Feng had encountered before. Yun exclaimed. The triple will of the sword, higher than what he had now. Feng suggested that Wangshu help Shu while he took care of the guest. The warrior frowned. It seemed the boys were underestimating the power of the sky. He attacked Feng with the 1,000 Heavenly Blades technique. In response, Feng used both the Killing Sword technique and one of the Tyrant Sword forms. There was a deafening explosion. The Nanjiang base warrior's self-confidence was diminished. He was wounded. The warrior whispered in amazement, "This kid is so strong." The young man attacked his opponent again. He cursed, "This guy is not so simple. And if those two also join the fighter from Nanjiang won't be able to cope." The man asked Feng what he cared about the people from the Purple Sun base, since he was from Starlight. Feng replied that he could consider it healthy competition. Dai suggested that they attack those two together. The guest would kill them, and Feng would simply stand aside. And then they will divide everything in half and go their separate ways. Yun smiled. Did Dai really think that he would just believe him? The warrior offered to immediately hand over the Lingji mushroom of immortality to Feng if he agreed. The young man took a step back. He agreed to take the mushroom that Wangshu was looking for. The enemy threw him a mushroom, shouting for him to catch it. Having caught the mushroom, the young man said, "Everything is ready." Dai laughed. What a fool. He only wanted to distract him. But Feng was already behind him. It seemed they were thinking the same thing. Yun inflicted a mortal wound on the enemy. Wangshu noticed that Yun had become stronger since their last meeting. Feng asked Chief Shu how her injuries were. She smiled. "She will live." Feng handed over a mushroom. "This should help." Shu recognized the mushroom that Lin found, but Dai stole it. Now is not the time to lick wounds. We need to get out of here quickly. Mirror agreed. Perhaps some animal was using the mushroom as bait. Wangshu said, "It's too late, they're already here." The 9th rank gold-armored mantises have arrived. Lin asked the leader to stay aside while he and Feng Yun dealt with them. Feng agreed with Lin Wangshu. Yun asked Shu to look after the kitten, especially since cats help heal wounds. Giant praying mantises hovered above the people. Lin Wangshu challenged Feng Yun to a competition. Feng laughed. "This is not fair. He just fought with a warrior of the sky." Wangshu replied, "Everything is fair. Yun has already warmed up." There were 2 9th rank mantises for each guy. Mirror doubted that Wangshu could handle it. Feng said that Wangshu could do it, so he, Yun, could do it too. He decided to first use the spatial attribute to get closer to the enemy's weak point, but suddenly the mantis turned its head towards the enemy. Before Feng could gasp, his sword ended up in the enemy's teeth. The young man struck, but the mantis dodged. In addition, it turned out that the enemy can change color and camouflage itself. The mantis attacked Feng with lightning speed. He proved to be a difficult opponent. His head rotated and his body changed color. Mirror asked. He was a bad student in his past life. The praying mantis is at the top of the food chain. He is the perfect predator. Furthermore, it appears that praying mantises can cooperate. Wangshu said that the competition was cancelled and he couldn't handle it, so Feng suggested that they team up. We need to concentrate our forces and kill them all one by one. Feng shouted that he would distract the others while Lin finished off his own. While Yun distracted 3 of the mantises, Wangshu inflicted wound after wound on the 4th. This way the boys were able to deal with all the monsters. And so all 4 monsters were killed. Shu Hong smiled. This battle was more exciting than if they were fighting each other. 3 days later, Feng Yun returned home to Starlight Base. The tiger cub ate a large piece of meat with appetite. Feng told their story. He received permission from the authorities to keep the animal. He is quite smart. He will not hurt children. The director sighed. What a sad story. Since his mother died protecting them, they will take care of him. Yun asked the director what she knew about his mother. This unexpected question left the woman stumped. The director sighed. In fact, it wasn't she who found it. It was deep night. A girl with a baby in her arms appeared on the threshold of their shelter. Mirror listened to the director of the shelter in surprise. Having handed over the child, the girl simply flew away silently. Feng's mother looked to be a little over 20 years old. Yun was surprised. She was so young and could already fly. It seems there was a good reason why the former owner of this body was abandoned as a child. Feng felt that he might soon be noticed by more powerful forces. If they find out about his identity, and especially about the mirror, it will not be sweet. Why can't he just calmly cultivate? While there is still some time, we need to use this mushroom. I wonder what this mushroom tastes like. The young man put a piece in his mouth. The taste is not bad. Maybe I'll try making soup out of it next time. Feng screamed as if the blood inside him was boiling. Pain all over his body, as if his body was becoming like a shell. Looks like I'll have to cultivate overnight again. No, now that he has the talent for the blood attribute, Feng can control the blood flow in every vein and artery. Yun only needs to purify the blood, remove impurities, and continuously temper. Guests were greeted in the central building of the Starlight Base. A portal began to spin in front of the base's leadership. The director of the academy realized that they were already here. Powerful streams of energy almost knocked those who met them off their feet. Here, in front of them, the vague silhouettes of the guests appeared. In front of the base leadership stood the mentor Hong Qianbo and his relative Hong Xinyuan. Everyone greeted Master Hong respectfully. Qianbo chuckled contentedly. He introduced his relative Hong Xinyuan, and he took him with him to take the exam at Zhanghai Base. Starlight Base received a quota. It is still free. Director Yan looked at the guest questioningly. Hong asked what those disgruntled faces were about. Was there really another mentor here? So they decided not to tell him about it. Yan explained that by special decree of the Zhanghai Base, this quota was given to the best student, Feng Yun. The academy director didn't think that mentor Hong also had a candidate. Hong asked irritably, what stage had this Feng Yun reached? How strong was he? Yan Chengqiu replied, he is at the peak master rank. The mentor's relative asked with a grin, and this is their best student, but he is just trash. The head of the base pulled the impudent boy back. He snorted contemptuously in response. The guy grinned and summoned streams of raging energy. Yan put up a shield to protect himself and the others. The young guest asked if they would rather send this Feng Yun to disgrace himself than give him this position. Hong rebuked his relative. Chief Yan is a master of weapon creation, so his martial arts cultivation level is not that high. The teacher laughed. Xin Yuan at 17 years old is half a step away from the sky. That's why he is so arrogant. Yan was amazed. Half a step away from heaven at the age of 17. Hong suggested that Feng Yun and Xin Yuan fight, and the winner would get the place. At the academy, everyone happily welcomed Feng Yun. Feng heard that some genius had appeared who was claiming to be the best student. His friends were running towards him. Jan said that something bad had happened. He hasn't seen the guys since the tournament. Bai said that, on the recommendation of the mentor, a certain Xin Yuan had transferred to them he intended to take over Feng's leadership. Yun shook his head. He didn't understand anything. Then everyone heard Li Feng's voice. He said that he would explain it himself. He ordered Feng to follow him and the 3 friends to return to their studies. In fact, Xin Yuan is here to obtain Feng's position as the core disciple of the Zhanghai Base. Li Feng stopped and looked at Feng carefully. Xin Yuan's summons has nothing to do with Feng's position as a leading disciple. But Yun must lose to him. Mira was sure there must be a reason. Perhaps Li Feng didn't want Yun to become Zhanghai's core disciple. If there was something wrong at that base, Li Feng should know about it. Fina was worried that they would want to know the secret of his rapid growth. Mirror said then the reason they announced recruitment for the first time in 5 years is because of Feng Yun. The young man clenched his fists. He wouldn't lose to just anyone. He will win, even if he has to face his mentor's wrath. Feng Yun and Hong Xinyuan entered the arena. The young man decided to win, even if he had to flee after the battle. Young Hong smiled. To learn the will of the sword and blade at 15 years old, not bad. Yun asked, so this is the newbie. Xinyuan yelled, Feng is new here, he will shut his mouth with his fist. Yun chuckled. All it would take to defeat Feng was a finger. Enraged, Xinyuan swung at the young man. Suddenly Feng Yun appeared behind him. Putting his finger to his opponent's head, he said that he lost. The mentor could not believe his eyes, an attribute of space. The director of the academy frowned. This boy is full of mysteries. Turning around, Xinyuan grabbed Yun's hand. The battle was not over yet. Suddenly, young Hong felt someone grab him by the collar. The mentor threw his relative away, saying that he had lost. He asked how Feng managed to simultaneously use the will of the sword and blade along with the spatial attribute. Although it would be better if Feng Yun said who he is. Feng felt the powerful aura of his interlocutor. I wonder if Yun will be able to escape from the mentor. At the same time, 200 meters from the Starlight Base, other events were unfolding. A group of monster hunters headed into the forest. One of them admired the views, the beauty. Another added, if only there weren't these creatures around. The guys were outraged. The captain could ruin the whole atmosphere. The hunters entered the forest cautiously. And then they saw a monster jump towards them. The 8th-rank demon, a giant obsidian python, hissed at the people. The hunters grabbed their swords. The captain shouted, everyone, get ready to fight if they can kill him. Then the whole journey was not in vain. Suddenly the hunters froze in fear. A huge shadow hung over the python, blocking the sky. People couldn't believe their eyes. The huge paw crushed the giant python like a worm. The winged wolf grabbed the python in his teeth and glared. Feng was thinking about how he could escape from Mentor Hong. They stood in the arena opposite each other. Hong chuckled. Feng couldn't avoid his fists stained with the blood of Spirit Lord-ranked beasts. Mirror was disappointed. Although Hong had a high rank, his skills were quite mediocre. Feng decided to try teleporting using the spatial attribute. The young man began teleporting. Hong Qianbo chuckled. He swung and shouted that he had warned the boy. The mentor struck with his fist, destroying the teleporter. A stunned Yun found himself back in the arena. The young man fell near Master Hong. Feng wiped away the blood. Hong destroyed the spatial rift with one blow, and this is mediocre. Mirror explained that Feng had a low-ranking attribute, which created a large rift through which the enemy could strike. It looks like a fight with Mentor Feng is inevitable. Li Feng shouted at Mentor Hong to stop. He said that a gentleman from the outer city had arrived. But then a man quickly approached Li Feng. The teacher turned around in surprise. The academy director grabbed Li Feng by the throat. Raising himself, he asked the teacher who gave him the right to interrupt Master Hong. Hong chuckled. There was no one stronger than him on this base, so Feng had better be a good boy. Yun cursed. It seemed that Yan Chunqiu himself had been suspecting him for a long time. Could it really be that it was all over? Then a security officer turned to the mentor, who hissed at him, saying how annoying they were. The guard reported that a pack of rats was spotted 100 meters from the base. Hong wondered what the rats were doing here. Yan asked if the guard was sure they were heading this way. The guard said confidently, "That's for sure." The head of the base was surprised. Their base is quite poor. Why are the rats attacking them? Yan reminded his mentor that there was a king behind the rats. He had intelligence. This attack was not an accident. Hong Qianbo promised to check everything and ordered to keep an eye on Feng so that he did not escape. The mentor took off and headed out of the city. Mirror told Feng that as soon as Hong left, he would run away. There were no rivals for him here except for the mentor. The young man clenched his fists and apologized to the DSLR. His family and friends are here, and until he finds out what is causing the rat attack, he can't just leave them and run away. Qianbo quickly reached the outskirts of the base. He was amazed that rats move so quickly, and there are so surprisingly many of them. I look down. The mentor is stunned. The rats are climbing up to him. A huge wave of rats is ready to cover him. Hong screamed no in horror. The mentor saw that a wave of monstrous rats was surrounding him. The monsters were clearly trying to grab Qianbo. He desperately rushed upward, but 2 waves were already following him. And then he raised his head and opened his mouth in surprise. A cloud of black rats was flying straight at him from above. The mentor clenched his fists, preparing to repel the attack. Hong shouted that he couldn't lose to a pack of damn rats. A giant rat king ran behind the rats. The man in the cloak said that it would be difficult with Hun. The rat king replied that the base was already in front of them. The mentor could not stop them. A small base dared to kill the people of Bloodthorn. This base must be punished. This time Mr. Zuelo is watching them. The rat king was surprised. They sent Zuelo to monitor the fall of this tiny base. Well, Hong's life will be a gift to Xuelo in honor of their first meeting. From the wall of the outer city of the Starlight Base, they watched what was happening. The guard was surprised at what it was. Is this really such a high rat wave? Not far from the walls, several strange black towers rose up. These towers moved, wiggled, and changed shape. Taking a closer look, the guard on the wall was convinced that these were indeed rats. Hong cursed. The energy does not have time to recover. The rats are blocking the flow of energy from heaven and earth. The mentor has been attacked by vile creatures. We need to escape quickly. Either find the Rat King or return to base. The rats surrounded Qianbo like a dense black cocoon. Finally, he broke through to the top and hurried to escape. The mentor looked at the black predators with disdain. He said with disgust, "Creepy creatures." Suddenly Hong heard someone from above say, "The old man is still capable of something." The unknown person hit the mentor on the head and said, "Go down." Having lost consciousness, Qianbo flew into the thick of rats. There were guns on the fortress wall of the outer city. The base guards prepared to fight off the monsters. The command was given, and the guns began to fire in unison. Shells flew into the rat towers. The towers crumbled, and some of the animals died from the shots. The guards demanded that all fighters climb onto the fortress walls, and that civilians immediately flee to other areas. The guards ran to the wall. Zhou Wei noticed that the closer they were to the threat, the less energy there was around them. At the outer wall, the warriors were weakened. The rats were blocking the energy. One of the defenders said that they do not have time to restore energy. So, the formations for collecting energy for the weapons are useless. Maybe this was the Rat King's plan. Tao countered. His goal was to have the rats absorb the surrounding energy, rendering the weapon useless. The captain said that now their lives are in the hands of fate. Feng Yun hurried back home. People with machine guns blocked his path, and the young man said that this was his house. The soldier explained that their orders were to protect the family of the academy's leading student. There were also soldiers inside the house. Xiaolan didn't know what to do. Feng said dismissively that it would be better if the soldiers helped repel the attack on the outer wall. The base management figured out that if they captured Feng's family, he wouldn't dare to escape, and then they would have to watch the rat wave. The soldiers fled to the main gates of the inner city. Feng was surprised that the rats were really that close. This Grandmaster Hong couldn't even hold back the wave for a moment. No, something is wrong here. Are the guards really protecting the gates from people? Indeed, people from the outer city sought salvation, but they were not allowed into the inner city. Suddenly, the chief of police appeared among the soldiers. He ordered the gates to be closed, even at the cost of other people's lives. These people are just a bunch of poor, weak bugs. Their lives are worth nothing. The chief was about to give the order to open fire, but at that moment he received a strong punch to the face. Feng Yun shouted for the soldiers to quickly open the gate. To illustrate, he struck the city's massive gates. A large hole appeared in the gate. Mirror asked, "Feng has gone crazy. He damaged the gate. What to do when the wave reaches here?" The young man apologized sheepishly. He flared up and asked for help to patch up the hole. In the meantime, he will finish off the Rat King. Tao's squad climbed the wall. They charged the cannons with their energy. A weakened Mei fell next to the gun. Zhang Tao asked her what was wrong, if she was okay. The girl told the captain that she was simply out of energy. Hualin threw an energy stone to Mei to recharge. She thanked him with a smile, but stopped mid-sentence. Sun shouted for everyone to be careful. A swarm of black rats was flying right above them. Tao's squad entered into battle with a huge army of rats. They understood that they could not cope. Mi shouted at Zhou Wei to retreat back. He looked up and saw a huge wave heading straight towards them. Wei remained where he was, deciding to take the blow himself. He screamed deafeningly, and everyone understood that Zhou was no longer there. Feng was in a hurry to get out of the city. People were saying that the outer walls had already been breached. The young man cursed. He wouldn't make it in time. A huge red-eyed rat was rushing straight towards Feng. After cutting down the monster, Yun realized that these rats were bigger than he thought. Each of them is a serious opponent for ordinary people. With such a quantity, and with a small flow of qi in the air, even warriors will have a hard time. You need to climb the wall. Where did this Hong go? Didn't he manage to deal with the Rat King? The young man soared into the air. He saw waves of rats crashing against the walls one after another. The outer walls are broken. The rat wave can no longer be stopped. You'll have to fight your way to the Rat King. Mirror warned that with such weak qi, even Feng would have a hard time getting close to him. Yun smiled. He had come up with a plan. He decided to use the will of the sword and blade to defend himself, turning the defense into a meat grinder. Tao ordered Xiaomei and Hualin to flee, saying that he was beyond saving. Suddenly, one of the warriors said that someone was coming to help them. It was Feng Yun. Mei said that Zhou Mei was dead. Hualin asked if help would come. Feng sighed. He didn't see anyone else along the way. He handed the boys some healing and qi restoration pills. Mei asked where Yun was going, to the Rat King. Feng confirmed that this was the only way to stop the rat wave, and someone has to do it. Beyond the outer walls, huge black waves of rats were already approaching the base. There was an explosion. Hong Qianbo came to his senses and broke free. Taking off, he rubbed his head. Fortunately, he had a strong body, otherwise he would have long ago become rat food. He realized that he couldn't stay here. The Starlight base was finished. Suddenly he saw a strange movement, and what was that? It's time to run while you're still alive. Suddenly the mentor saw Feng Yun, and the young man was also surprised to see Grandmaster Hong. The city was burning. It seemed that the end had come for it. He Wei asked if it was worth going to rescue Feng Yun. Tang believed that the boy should manage on his own, but Hong Qianbo and his family should be lured away. Hong was very happy to see the boy. He will hand it over to the Zhanghai base for experiments. They will reward him with dignity. Feng realized that this bastard wanted to leave the city in trouble. Yun proposed to deal with the Rat King together and save the city. Hong called the boy a fool. He was not interested in all this heroic nonsense. The old man thinks only about his own benefit and Feng Yun's secret. He cannot be persuaded. He must run away. The young man used the spatial attribute again. The mentor snorted and rushed towards the fugitive. He struck the rift, knocking Feng out of the teleporter. The blow caused blood to gush out of Yun's mouth. Feng soared into the air, escaping from the greedy Grandmaster. Hong was stunned. He also had the wind attribute, and not just at the entry level. What skill? The boy is already on the threshold of flight skill, but Hong was sure it was all useless. Feng saw the mentor rush after him. The young man has landed. We need to somehow get him off our tail. Qianbo pursued Yun as the most valuable prey. Feng hoped that Hong would not risk breaking into the heart of the wave. Realizing what the boy was up to, Hong attacked him. The young man dodged the main blow, but it still hit him. He cursed, "This Qianbo doesn't stand on ceremony at all. It is necessary to heal the wounds as quickly as possible with the help of a pill." The teacher shouted, "Stop resisting!" In Hong Feng's eyes there is the same rat. Although the secrets hidden within Feng are valuable, he is only a pitiful commoner. Swallowing the pill, Feng replied, Hong, like the idiots from his previous world, realizing that they themselves were scum, laughed at those who did not give up. Even if he knew the secret, Hong wouldn't become stronger, so Feng would never reveal it to someone like him. Hong laughed. "It's okay. Torture has broken even worse." Suddenly, a huge black shadow loomed over the mentor. Qianbo was confused about where the Rat King came from. A wave of rats swept over the greedy mentor of the Starlight base. The king said that the selfish nature of man cannot be changed. The strife will never end, and in a little while the base will be captured. Feng said, "But the Rat King is also a human." The king was surprised how Feng was able to get close to him. The young man grinned. He moved. Mira realized that he was a man with the transmutation attribute, and this disaster happened because Feng killed the members of the Bloodthorn. The king asked Feng what he would do, and he replied that he would kill the king and save the city. But now only the king can help Feng escape from Hong. Mira confirmed, the king is right. Meanwhile, Tao's detachment fought desperately at the city walls. The best students also fought with the rats under the leadership of Li Feng. Feng Yun's school friends were firing guns on the wall, and in his house, the children and the director remained at gunpoint. Feng dealt the Rat King a fatal blow. Yun realized that if he abandoned his friends, he would be no different from Hong Qianbo. As he died, the king laughed. Does Feng really think this is all over? Oh no, this is just the beginning. Soldiers and students cleared the outer city of rat corpses. Zhousheng reported that that part had already been cleared. Li Feng told the guys that he was on reconnaissance and that they should not relax. It is still unknown what happened outside the city. Lu Xuan assumed that the mentor had only delayed the king. Li Feng was informed that several rats had been seen in other parts of the city. Yan suggested that the leader send equipment to the outer city to restore and strengthen the walls. Under this pretext, he will be able to bring the inhabitants of the outer city back. The head of the base realized that something was bothering the director of the academy. Yan feared that the waves had not receded because of Hong's battle with the Rat King. The rats were frightened by something, but hardly by the mentor. Feng stood in the forest and pondered the words of the Rat King. He said this is just the beginning. What he meant. The young man heard someone approaching him. The old man introduced himself. He was Xuelo, the new examiner of the Bloodthorn. Mira realized that this Grandmaster wanted Feng to join the Bloodthorn. He Wei and Tang Wenhu were watching the scene. He Wei cursed, "It's the examiner. It seems Feng Yun will be taken away." The third masked man objected that as long as he was here, no one would dare take the one they had their eye on. The two respectfully greeted Master Heavenly Rat. The master, clenching his fists, moved forward decisively. He jumped off the roof and flew. With the help of the spatial attribute, he instantly found himself in place. The Sky Rat landed almost next to Feng Yun. Without further ado, he headed towards Xuelo. Feng was amazed. Not a breath of wind. What masterful control over energy. Grandmaster again. They're popping up like mushrooms after rain. Mirror was sure he was here to invite her to join him. Suelo smiled, and Master Heavenly Rat also arrived here. He replied that he had come for Feng Yun. They had noticed him for a long time. Suelo frowned. So that's how it is. But if Bloodthorn wants to get something, no one can stop them. The examiner attacked the unexpected guest. He used the ruinous fist against the Rat Master. A clot of metal energy swirled in the hand of the Heavenly Rat. He attacked Suelo with the dark metal Heavenly Seal. The young man watched the confrontation of two powerful techniques with surprise. Meanwhile, Master Duan rushed at the enemy with a spear. A fight broke out between the masters. The Bloodthorn examiner was thrown back by a powerful blow. Duan said, Suelo dared to provoke a conflict between the Truth Society and Bloodthorn. Suelo retorted, the masks would never defeat the Hidden Killer Society. Duan chuckled. Did Suelo really think a couple of pathetic killers would be enough? The Sky Rat clenched his fist. Circles of fire appeared around the Bloodthorn's killers. The same circle swirled around the new examiner. The ground beneath the feet of the rat's enemies burst into flames. He used the dark metal earth seal technique, but while they were fighting, a third Feng hunter appeared out of nowhere. Hong Qianbo grabbed the boy and flew away. The Sky Rat roared, how dare the old man do such a thing? Duan threw a spear at the kidnapper. Feng Yun watched in horror as the spear flew straight towards him. The mentor rose higher and higher above the forest. Feng shouted to Hong that they were under attack. Qianbo snorted in displeasure. He was forced to let go of the boy. Dun soared above the impudent mentor Hong. The Sky Rat clearly intended to kill Qianbo. With a cry of die, Duan launched a hail of fiery arrows at Hong. Hong met the arrows with a hail of fists. Feng realized that things were bad if the three grandmasters started a massacre here. He wouldn't be able to escape. The young man asked Mirror what he should do. The girl winked. She had an idea. She showed Feng his former director, the great Grandmaster Xia Kandao. Seeing the old man's characteristics, Feng was stunned. This master is simply incredibly strong. Yun asked why the principal of the Outer City Academy of the small base was a great Grandmaster. Mirror believed that he had suffered during the battle 10 years ago. Although his cultivation had been preserved, his combat power had been greatly reduced. The young man was happy, which meant he could start farming it now. But Mirror pointed to the Rat King. Feng will farm him. If Feng gains the talent for transmutation, he will be able to take the form of Xia Kandao, the only one these three grandmasters fear. Yun smiled. Great, then let's get to work. At this time, a battle between two grandmasters was taking place in the air. Hong asked if he wasn't the Heavenly Rat of the Truth Society. He confirmed it was true. The mentor suggested making a truce. They had nothing to divide. Hong said that if the master agreed to his conditions, he would not only give them Feng Yun, but would also join them himself. He was also willing to help kill Grandmaster Bloodthorn. Duan asked, what is the condition? Hong admitted that he had little talent, but he would like to obtain Feng Yun's talents and will. Duan chuckled. As expected, everyone here is thirsty for power. Well, if it is possible, then he agrees. Hong said we need to grab this brat quickly. One of the killers approached Suelo with a report. He said that the boy was nowhere to be found, and the master swore. Can't they find one kid, the scum? Suelo frowned. If you want it done well, do it yourself. Suddenly he saw Hong and Duan coming towards him. The examiner didn't immediately figure out why they were together. Then I realized that this is how these two united. Duan demanded that Suelo hand over Feng Yun to them, and they would spare the examiner's life. Suelo replied that they didn't have the boy, and he sent people to look for him. Perhaps he has a talent for the dark attribute, which is why we couldn't find him. Duan chuckled. Then a lot is clear. Could he really have escaped? Hong said that Feng was ready to sacrifice himself, but to save his loved ones, they were in the city. It was easier to wait for him at the base. The masters decided to follow the advice and headed into the burning city. The head of the base was very surprised when he saw them. 3 grandmasters arrived here. No wonder the rats ran away in fear. A lone figure appeared on the street of the inner city. The great Grandmaster Xia Kandao walked along the empty street. The 3 grandmasters recognized Old Man Xia. They asked the great grandmaster in surprise why he was here. Hong said that it was Xia who informed him about the recruitment of core disciples, and Feng Yun was the only candidate. Suelo was surprised how such a treasure could fall into the hands of a homeless boy. The grandmasters didn't dare to contact Xia, who knows how much he had recovered. The examiner was sure that Xia Kandao was here for a reason. Duan suggested asking the old man directly. Having descended to the ground, they turned to the great grandmaster. The old man smiled. Did they really come to greet him? Hong thanked Xia for the announcement of the recruitment of key disciples, but his untalented disciple lost to the young man. Xiandao replied, Feng Yun is a genius. No wonder Hong's disciple lost. So it was the director who wanted to prevent Feng from becoming a core student. Mirror barked. The director wanted to shield Feng from the martial arts hall, but Yun was so stubborn. This is because in his past life he was constantly compromising and giving up what he wanted. In this world, Feng did not want to bow down and give in to anyone. Xia added, Yun was his disciple. Now he will look after his family in his place. Soldiers were still on duty near Feng Yun's house. Seeing the old man, the detachment commander ordered him to stop. The old man said his name was Shekandao. Appearing behind the commander, Feng knocked him out. He did the same with the rest of the soldiers. The young man added, Shekandao, don't forget. Seeing the old man, the soldier asked who he was and how he entered. The master frowned, saying that his name was Shekandao. Of course he entered here with a fight. The director of the orphanage and Xiaolan looked at what was happening in confusion. Shekandao reminded them of his name and ordered them to get out of here. The barely alive soldiers hurried to get away from there. The director warmly thanked Mr. Shekandao. The old man said that he protected their family because Feng Yun was an incredible talent. The shelter director invited their savior to have tea. Suddenly a tiger cub came up and rubbed itself against the old man's legs, purring. Xiaolan was amazed. Feng Yun was unrecognizable. He had learned to transform. There was a knock at the door. Feng was confused as to who it could be. He said he would go and open it. The young man habitually took hold of the handle of the front door. The real director of Hailan Academy stood at the threshold. Having assumed his appearance, Yun invited the director to have tea. Feng didn't know what to say, but Xia reassured him that all means were good for the protection of loved ones. The young man smiled. He knew that the director would not mind. Having thanked him for the treat, Sandao said that he had to go. He still had business at the academy. A saddened Feng asked the director to be careful. Li Feng greeted Mr. Xia happily. The teacher said that they had serious problems. The head of the base didn't believe it. Could this really be true? You can't joke around with something like that. The guard swore that all the soldiers of the Tianhu detachment died except for him. They were killed by wild creatures led by a winged wolf. The base commander addressed the grandmasters. He asked to help them defend the city. But the beast waves, led by the spiritual master, did not want to take risks. Xuelo and Duan immediately flew away, saying that there was a great grandmaster at the base, Hong cursed, and they were still pretending to be masters.